Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto awakened the Whirlpool Sharingan, Naruto of Uzumaki clan. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Crimson Awakening. The kunai whistled past Naruto's ear, close enough that he felt the wind of its passage brush against his skin. Instinctively, he ducked and rolled, his body moving before his mind had fully processed the danger. 3 years of training with Jiraiya had honed his reflexes to razor sharpness. "You've gotten faster, brat," his assailant called from the shadow of a massive cedar. But not fast enough. Naruto's hands flashed through seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 identical copies materialized in puffs of smoke, each wearing the same determined expression. The forest clearing, previously peaceful in the late afternoon sun, erupted into chaos as the clones scattered in different directions. "This again." The voice sounded almost disappointed. "Predictable." A barrage of shuriken cut through the air, each finding its mark with unsettling precision. The clones disappeared in rapid succession, clouds of smoke momentarily obscuring the battlefield. Naruto gritted his teeth. This mission was supposed to be simple. Courier duty to an outpost near the land of hot water. Kakashi-sensei had described it as a chance to stretch your legs after being cooped up in the village. Now he found himself under attack by an opponent who seemed to anticipate his every move. Falling back to a defensive position against a moss-covered boulder, Naruto assessed his options. The attacker hadn't revealed themselves beyond that voice, deep, confident, vaguely familiar but impossible to place. "You rely too heavily on those clones," the voice continued, now coming from a different direction entirely. "A weakness inherited from your father." "Perhaps." Naruto froze. "What did you say about my father?" Silence answered him, broken only by the rustling of leaves overhead. The mention of his parentage wasn't casual, it was calculated to throw him off balance. Few knew of his connection to the fourth Hokage. This wasn't a random encounter. A flicker of movement to his left caught his attention. Naruto launched a kunai with an explosive tag attached, then immediately created another shadow clone to circle around his opponent's position. The explosion ripped through the forest, sending splinters and leaves flying in all directions. When the smoke cleared, Naruto's clone stood warily at the edge of a small crater. "Nothing," the clone called back. The hairs on the back of Naruto's neck stood up seconds before he sensed the presence behind him. He spun, barely deflecting the strike aimed at his kidney. For the first time, he caught a glimpse of his attacker, a tall figure in dark clothing. Face obscured by a ceramic mask painted with intricate crimson patterns reminiscent of swirling water. Only a pair of eyes remained visible, dark, calculating eyes that studied him with unnerving intensity. "Who are you?" Naruto demanded, creating distance between them with a backward leap. "What do you want?" "I want to see if the rumors are true," the masked figure replied, hands forming unfamiliar seals. "If Uzumaki blood still runs true in your veins." The ground beneath Naruto's feet illuminated with a complex matrix of symbols that hadn't been there moments before. Recognition flashed through his mind. Sealing jutsu, but unlike any he'd encountered before. The symbols glowed with an eerie blue light, spreading outward in concentric circles. "What the?" Naruto tried to jump away, but his feet seemed rooted in place. "Sealing art. Memory extraction," the masked shinobi intoned, voice taking on a ritualistic cadence. "Let us see what secrets your blood holds." Pain lanced through Naruto's body, starting at his feet and racing upward like liquid fire in his veins. He'd experienced pain before. Training injuries, battle wounds, even the burning sensation of the Nine Tails chakra, but this was different. This wasn't just physical, it felt as though someone was rifling through his very essence. "Stop," he growled, struggling against invisible bonds. The Nine Tails chakra stirred within him, responding to his distress, but something about the sealing matrix seemed to be containing it. "Fascinating," the masked figure murmured. "The seal integrates with Uzumaki chakra pathways. Your mother's work was exceptional." Through gritted teeth, Naruto managed to form a single hand sign. The clone he'd created earlier charged from its position, Rasengan whirling in its palm. The masked shinobi didn't even turn. With a casual gesture, a barrier of shimmering energy intercepted the clone, dispersing it instantly. I didn't come here to fight you, Naruto Uzumaki, the figure said, maintaining the sealing jutsu. I came to awaken what has been dormant. The pain intensified, concentrating behind Naruto's eyes. His vision blurred, tunneling at the edges. Desperately, he reached for the Nine Tails chakra again, only to find it strangely unresponsive. Your tenant cannot help you now, the masked shinobi observed. This seal was designed specifically to bypass the work of the fourth Hokage without disrupting it. Elegant, if I do say so myself. Naruto's knees buckled as images flashed through his mind. Places he'd never seen, people he'd never met. A village built over turbulent waters. Buildings with spiraling designs. Red-haired shinobi working on complex seals. And eyes like none he'd seen before, crimson but patterned with both spiral formations and tomo. What are you showing me? He gasped. Not showing, the masked figure corrected. Awakening. What was always inside you? The pressure behind Naruto's eyes built to an unbearable crescendo. Something was changing, shifting. It felt as though a door long sealed was being forcibly wrenched open. Your mother feared this power, the masked shinobi continued conversationally, as though they weren't in the middle of a mysterious ritual. She sealed it away before you were born. A precaution, perhaps, or fear of what the village might do if they knew. Through the haze of pain, Naruto caught a flash of red reflected in his attacker's mask. With shock, he realized it was coming from his own eyes. There it is, the masked figure said with satisfaction. The legacy of two bloodlines. United as they were always meant to be. Something within Naruto snapped. Not broken, but released. Chakra surged through his system in unfamiliar patterns. The sealing matrix beneath him crackled with energy. Symbols rearranging themselves spontaneously. The masked shinobi took a step back. Impossible. The seal is adapting. For the first time, Naruto could sense the chakra around him, not just feel it, but see it. Flowing patterns of energy surrounding both himself and his attacker became visible, like luminous threads connecting everything in the forest. And more startlingly, old predict his opponent's next move before they made it. The masked figure raised a hand, presumably to adjust the seal, and Naruto saw the intention manifest as a phantom movement seconds before the actual motion. Without conscious thought, Naruto's hands formed seals he'd never learned. Sealing art. Reflection barrier. The matrix beneath him pulsed, and suddenly the energy it had been drawing from him reversed direction. The masked shinobi staggered backward as their own technique rebounded. How? The figure demanded, genuine surprise evident in their voice. You couldn't possibly know that counter seal. Naruto didn't answer, partly because he had no explanation. He simply acted on instinct, following patterns that seemed to materialize in his mind. His vision had sharpened dramatically, colors more vivid. Movements crystallized into perfect clarity. He could see chakra pathways within his opponent's body, similar to how Neji described the Byakugan's vision, yet fundamentally different. Taking advantage of his attacker's momentary confusion, Naruto formed another set of unfamiliar seals. Crimson spiral technique. Binding chains. Glowing chains of pure chakra erupted from his body, snaking toward the masked shinobi with unerring precision. The technique felt both familiar and strange, as though he were remembering something he'd never actually learned. The masked figure leapt backward, hands flashing through countering seals. Uzumaki chains. Impossible. That technique died with Kushina. But the chains moved with a mind of their own, anticipating the evasive maneuvers. One wrapped around the shinobi's ankle, another nearly snagged an arm before being narrowly avoided. Enough. The masked figure formed a single-hand seal. You've proven more receptive than anticipated. We'll continue this another time. Before Naruto could respond, the ground between them erupted in a blinding flash. When his vision cleared, the mysterious attacker had vanished, leaving only disturbed earth and lingering chakra residue as evidence of their encounter. Naruto stood alone in the clearing, breathing heavily. The strange energy flowing through his system gradually subsided, though not entirely. Something fundamental had changed. He raised a hand to his face, touching the skin below his eyes gingerly. His reflection in a nearby puddle confirmed what he'd suspected. His ordinarily blue eyes had transformed. The irises glowed crimson, marked with 3 tomo like a Sharingan, but surrounded by spiral patterns that seemed to slowly rotate. "What the hell?" he whispered. The sound of rapidly approaching footsteps interrupted his shock. Seconds later, Hinata Hyuga burst into the clearing, Byakugan activated. "Naruto-kun," she called, concern evident in her voice. "I sensed a disturbance in your chakra. Are you?" She stopped abruptly when she saw his face, her own eyes widening in astonishment. "Your eyes," she whispered, unconsciously activating her Byakugan more intensely. "They're not. I don't understand." Naruto turned toward her, and Hinata gasped. The Hyuga heiress had studied dojutsu extensively as part of her clan training. She recognized the tomo pattern of the Sharingan immediately, impossible as that seemed in Naruto Uzumaki, but the spiraling formations surrounding them were entirely unknown to her. More disconcerting was what her Byakugan revealed. Naruto's chakra pathways had reconfigured themselves, forming intricate spiral patterns throughout his body. Energy flowed through these new channels in ways that defied everything she'd been taught about the human chakra system. "What happened?" she asked, approaching cautiously. Naruto opened his mouth to explain, then winced as a sharp pain lanced through his head. The strange eyes faded, returning to his normal blue, and he staggered. Hinata moved with surprising speed, catching him before he could fall. "Naruto-kun, I'm okay," he mumbled, though the sudden exhaustion suggested otherwise. "Just tired. There was someone. They did something to me. We need to get you back to Konoha," Hinata said firmly, supporting his weight with unexpected strength. The timidity that usually characterized her interactions with Naruto had vanished in the face of his obvious distress. "Lady Tsunade needs to examine you immediately." As they began the journey back toward the village, neither noticed the masked figure watching from a distant treetop. "Interesting," the observer murmured. "The Hyuga girl witnessed it. That complicates matters, or perhaps presents new opportunities." With a flicker of movement, the mysterious shinobi disappeared, leaving no trace behind. The gates of Konoha came into view as the afternoon sun began its descent toward the horizon. Naruto had recovered somewhat during their journey, now walking under his own power though still visibly drained. "You don't need to escort me all the way to the Hokage Tower," he told Hinata, offering a weak smile. "I can make it from here." Hinata shook her head firmly. "I witnessed what happened. Lady Tsunade will want my report as well." A faint blush colored her cheeks as she added, "Besides, I'm concerned about you." The straightforwardness surprised Naruto. Hinata had always been kind but painfully shy around him. This more assertive version was unexpected, though not unwelcome. "Thanks," he said sincerely. "For everything back there. I was pretty out of it." Hinata nodded, her eyes briefly scanning his face. "Has it happened again? The change in your eyes?" Naruto touched his face unconsciously. "No, but it feels like it could. Like something's waiting just below the surface." The guards at the village gate, Izumo and Kotetsu, straightened as they approached. "Back already, Naruto," Kotetsu called out. That was quick even for. He broke off, noticing Naruto's disheveled appearance and Hinata's concerned expression. "Everything okay? Need to see Granny Tsunade," Naruto replied tersely. "Official business." The guards exchanged glances but waved them through without further questions. Word would spread quickly regardless. The Konoha rumor mill operated with remarkable efficiency. As they made their way through the village streets, Naruto became aware of an unfamiliar sensation. The buildings, people, even the stones beneath his feet, all seemed to pulse with barely visible energy. Chakra signatures registered in his peripheral awareness like flickering candles. "This is weird," he muttered. "What is?" Hinata asked immediately. Naruto hesitated, unsure how to describe the experience. "I can sort of see chakra. Not like your Byakugan, but differently. It comes and goes." Hinata's expression grew more concerned. "That's not a known ability of the Sharingan. And whatever else was happening with your eyes." "Yeah," Naruto agreed grimly. "The creep in the mask called it something. Said it was in my blood. Something about my mother sealing it away." At the mention of his mother, Hinata's step faltered slightly. Like most of their generation, she knew little of Naruto's parentage, only rumors and speculation. The reference to his mother possessing the ability to seal something of this magnitude, however, aligned with certain historical accounts she'd studied about the Uzumaki clan's legendary sealing prowess. Before she could formulate a response, a familiar voice called out to them. Naruto. Hinata. Sakura Haruno approached from the direction of the hospital, medical scrolls tucked under one arm. Her expression shifted from greeting to concern as she drew nearer. What happened? You look terrible. Thanks a lot, Sakura-chan. Naruto attempted to joke, but the humor fell flat. He was attacked during his mission, Hinata explained, her voice taking on a clinical precision that reminded listeners of her noble upbringing. By an unknown shinobi with advanced knowledge of sealing techniques. We're on our way to report to the Hokage. Sakura's eyes widened. I'll come with you. Lady Tsunade might want a medical assessment. As they continued toward the Hokage Tower, Naruto noticed Sakura studying him with professional intensity. What? He finally asked. Your chakra feels different, she said bluntly. Disturbed. Almost like when the Nine Tails chakra leaks through, but not quite the same. Before Naruto could respond, they arrived at the tower. The Chunin on duty at the entrance took one look at their serious expressions and waved them toward the stairs. The Hokage is with Kakashi-san, he informed them. But she left orders to be interrupted if any of Team 7 returned with urgent news. The trio ascended the stairs in tense silence. As they approached the Hokage's office, Naruto suddenly staggered. Vision swimming with crimson. For a heartbeat, he could see through the walls, perceive the chakra signatures of Tsunade and Kakashi engaged in conversation. Naruto-kun. Hinata's concerned voice pulled him back. He blinked, and the vision faded. I'm fine. Let's get this over with. Sakura knocked firmly on the door, and Tsunade's authoritative voice responded immediately. Enter. The Hokage's office was bathed in the golden light of late afternoon, documents spread across the massive desk where Tsunade sat. Kakashi stood nearby, visible eye lifting from an open scroll as they entered. You're back early, Tsunade observed, gaze sharpening as she took in their expressions. Report. Naruto stepped forward. I was attacked about 20 miles outside the village by a masked shinobi with advanced sealing techniques. He hesitated, unsure how to describe what had followed. They performed some kind of ritual on Naruto-kun, Hinata continued, her voice steadier than Naruto had ever heard it. It affected his chakra system and temporarily altered his eyes. Tsunade straightened, medical interest peaked. Altered how, exactly? Naruto and Hinata exchanged glances. Like a Sharingan, Naruto said finally. But with spiral patterns around the tomo. And I could see chakra, predict movements before they happened. The silence that followed was profound. Tsunade and Kakashi exchanged a look loaded with meaning that none of the younger shinobi could interpret. Show me, Tsunade commanded, rising from her desk. Naruto shook his head. I can't activate it on purpose. It just happened during the fight, then again briefly on the way here. Tsunade approached, hands already glowing with diagnostic jutsu. Hold still. As the Hokage's chakra probed his system, Naruto noticed something strange. He could see exactly how her technique worked, could follow the patterns of energy as they mapped his internal pathways. More disconcertingly, he found himself instinctively understanding how he might counter or modify the diagnostic jutsu. Tsunade's expression grew increasingly troubled as her examination continued. Finally, she stepped back, exchanging another meaningful glance with Kakashi. Sakura. Hinata. Wait outside, she ordered abruptly. But Lady Tsunade. Sakura began. Now, Tsunade cut her off, tone brooking no argument. Hinata hesitated, pale eyes fixed on Naruto with obvious concern. He offered what he hoped was a reassuring smile. It's okay. I'll be fine. After a moment, Hinata nodded reluctantly and followed Sakura from the room. When the door closed behind them, Tsunade activated a privacy seal with a casual gesture. Tell me exactly what happened, she demanded. Every detail, no matter how insignificant it might seem. Naruto described the encounter, trying to recall the precise words and techniques used by his masked attacker. As he spoke, he noticed Kakashi's visible eye narrowing progressively. And then he said something about my mother, Naruto concluded. That she feared this power and sealed it away before I was born. Tsunade sank back into her chair, expression grave. Damn it, I was afraid of this. Afraid of what? Naruto demanded, patience fraying. What's happening to me? And what does my mother have to do with it? Tsunade glanced at Kakashi. Your thoughts? The elver-haired Jonin considered for a moment before responding. The description matches certain rumors. Stories I'd dismissed as impossible. Will someone please tell me what's going on? Naruto interrupted, frustration mounting. Tsunade sighed heavily. What do you know about your mother's clan, Naruto? The Uzumaki. The question caught him off guard. Not much. Just that they were from Uzus. Hyogakure and were good at sealing jutsu. The Uzumaki clan was far more than that, Tsunade corrected. They were seal masters without equal, possessors of extraordinary chakra reserves and longevity. Their village, Uzushiogakure, was destroyed during the Second Shinobi World War precisely because other nations feared their power. Okay, but what does that have to do with my eyes? There were legends, Kakashi interjected quietly, about certain members of the Uzumaki clan developing a unique dojutsu. Nothing like the Byakugan or the Sharingan, but something different. These accounts were dismissed as folklore, especially after Uzushiogakure's destruction. Naruto's mind raced, trying to connect these revelations with what he'd experienced. But the masked guy said something about two bloodlines being united. Tsunade and Kakashi exchanged another loaded glance. Your mother, Kushina Uzumaki, was brought to Konoha as a child, Tsunade explained carefully. Partly for her protection after her village's destruction, but also because she possessed special chakra suited to containing the nine tails. I know that part, Naruto said impatiently. What you don't know, Tsunade continued, is that there were political considerations involved in your parents' union. Naruto frowned. Political considerations. The Senju, the Uchiha, and the Uzumaki shared distant ancestry, Kakashi explained. His tone deliberately neutral. Your father's lineage, while not from a prominent clan, included genetic markers of interest to certain factions within Konoha's leadership. Wait, Naruto interrupted, struggling to process this information. Are you saying my dad had Uchiha ancestors or something? Not exactly, Tsunade corrected. But there were compatible elements in his genetic makeup. Theoretical potential for something unprecedented if combined with Uzumaki bloodline traits. The implications slowly dawned on Naruto. So when that masked freak said two bloodlines uniting, it appears, Kakashi said quietly, that you may have manifested a dojutsu that combines elements of both the Sharingan and whatever visual prowess existed within the Uzumaki lineage. Naruto fell silent, mind reeling. After a moment, he looked up with determination in his eyes. So what do we do now? First, we need to understand exactly what's happening to you, Tsunade said decisively. I want you in the medical facility for comprehensive testing. If what we suspect is correct, your chakra pathways are undergoing significant reconfiguration. And the masked shinobi, Naruto pressed. They knew about this. They triggered it somehow. That's equally concerning, Kakashi acknowledged. Few outside Konoha's highest circles knew anything about your mother's sealing work. Let alone the theoretical potential of your genetic inheritance. We have a security breach, Tsunade concluded grimly. One that extends to some of the village's most classified information. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Tsunade deactivated the privacy seal with a gesture. Enter. Shizune appeared in the doorway, expression troubled. Lady Tsunade, forgive the interruption. But there's something you need to see immediately. What is it? One of our border sensors detected unusual activity near the ruins of Uzushiogakure, Shizune reported. A massive chakra surge, unlike anything we've recorded before. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. When? Approximately 3 hours ago, Shizune answered. Around the same time that. Her eyes flicked briefly to Naruto. Around the same time that Naruto was attacked, Tsunade finished, rising from her desk. This isn't coincidence. Kakashi nodded. Someone's been planning this, perhaps for years. Naruto's head throbbed suddenly, vision blurring. For an instant, he saw not the Hokage's office but unfamiliar surroundings. Stone buildings with spiral motifs, whirlpools churning beneath a massive bridge. A central tower marked with a symbol resembling a stylized whirlpool. Naruto. Tsunade's concerned voice pulled him back to the present. He blinked, the vision fading. I think I saw Uzushiogakure. But I've never been there. Quote. Tsunade's expression grew even more troubled. Memory transfer, or genetic memory activation. Either way, this confirms our theory. She turned to Shizune. Prepare the secure medical facility. Full privacy protocols. Yes, Lady Tsunade. Kakashi stepped forward. I should investigate the border incident personally. Tsunade nodded in agreement. Take a 4-person squad. Your choice. But maintain absolute secrecy about the reason for your mission. As they finalized details, Naruto's mind wandered back to the strange visions. They felt so real, not like dreams or imagination, but like memories, places he'd walked, people he'd known. Yet that was impossible. Uzumaki had been destroyed decades before his birth. Naruto, Tsunade's voice interrupted his thoughts. Report to the medical facility immediately. I'll join you shortly. What about Sakura and Hinata? He asked, suddenly remembering his companions waiting outside. Tsunade considered briefly. Sakura will assist with the medical evaluation. Her training under me makes her invaluable for this situation. She hesitated before adding, as for Hinata, her Byakugan could provide crucial insights into the changes in your chakra system. If you're comfortable with her involvement. The question surprised Naruto. It wasn't like Tsunade to consider his preferences in medical matters. Yeah, of course, he replied without hesitation. Hinata's already seen what happened. And she didn't freak out, which is something. Tsunade nodded. Very well. Kakashi will brief them on the need for absolute secrecy while I make preparations. As Naruto turned to leave, Kakashi spoke again. Naruto, be careful with this ability. If it is what we think, both the Sharingan and Uzumaki chakra techniques can be addictive in their power. The warning struck Naruto as uncharacteristically serious coming from his ordinarily laid-back sensei. I'll be careful, he promised. He wasn't entirely sure what he was promising to be careful of. As the door closed behind him, he heard Tsunade mutter, Kushina, what were you thinking, sealing this away without telling anyone the full truth? In the hallway, Naruto found Sakura and Hinata waiting anxiously. Before either could speak, Kakashi emerged from the office behind him. We're heading to the medical facility, the Jonin announced. I'll explain on the way. As they walked through the corridors of the Hokage Tower, Kakashi outlined the situation in carefully measured terms, omitting certain classified details, while emphasizing the importance of secrecy. So this technique Naruto manifested, Sakura clarified, it's some kind of rare Uzumaki clan ability. Something like that, Kakashi confirmed without elaborating further. Hinata walked slightly apart from the others, expression thoughtful. The chakra pathways I observed were unlike anything in the Hyuga medical texts, she noted quietly. They formed spiral configurations throughout Naruto-kun's system. Kakashi nodded. Your observations will be valuable during the medical evaluation. Lady Tsunade has specifically requested your assistance. Hinata's eyes widened slightly in surprise before she nodded with quiet determination. I'll do whatever I can to help. As they descended the tower stairs, Naruto's vision briefly doubled again. For a heartbeat, he saw not the familiar corridors but stone passageways lit by strange, glowing seals. The sensation passed quickly, but left him increasingly uneasy. What other memories or abilities might be awakening within him? And who was the masked shinobi who had triggered this transformation? More troubling still, why had his mother sealed away this power in the first place? The secure medical facility beneath Konoha Hospital hummed with activity as sensors and equipment were prepared for Naruto's examination. Tsunade had arrived ahead of them, already issuing precise instructions to the assembled medical staff. These readings are to remain classified at the highest level, she was saying as they entered. No discussion outside this room. No documentation beyond these secure scrolls. She turned as they approached, clinical professionalism replacing the concern she'd shown in her office. Naruto, through that door. Remove your jacket and shirt, then lie on the examination table. Her gaze shifted to Sakura. You'll assist with the chakra network analysis. Hinata, we'll need precise Byakugan observations of any changes to his pathways. As everyone moved to their assigned positions, Kakashi drew Tsunade aside. I've assembled a team for the border investigation. We leave immediately. Tsunade nodded. Keep communication to the secured channels only. If this is connected to Uzumaki legacy, we may be dealing with matters beyond standard protocol. In the examination room, Naruto sat uncomfortably on the edge of the table. Despite years of medical checkups, he'd never quite gotten used to being a patient. The antiseptic smell and clinical lighting always reminded him too much of childhood isolation during his early Jinchuriki evaluations. "Relax," Sakura advised, noticing his tension as she prepared diagnostic seals. "We're just going to monitor your chakra system while Lady Tsunade attempts to trigger the eye technique again." "Great," Naruto muttered. Looking forward to it, Hinata entered quietly, moving to a position where she could observe clearly while maintaining a respectful distance. Her Byakugan was already activated, veins prominent around her pale eyes. "I can see the new pathway formations," she reported. "They're pulsing, almost like they're still forming." Tsunade entered, immediately taking charge. "Naruto, I'm going to apply a specialized diagnostic technique. It may feel uncomfortable, possibly even painful. Tell me immediately if you experience any visions or memory-like phenomena." Naruto nodded, bracing himself. Tsunade's hands glowed with a complex chakra pattern as she placed them on either side of his head. The effect was immediate. Pain lanced behind his eyes, followed by a cascade of sensations, chakra rushing through newly formed pathways, connections establishing themselves throughout his system. "His chakras responding," Sakura reported, monitoring the diagnostic seals. "Massive surge in the ocular nerves and temporal region. The spiral pathways are activating," Hinata added, voice steady despite her evident concern. "They're directing chakra to his eyes and brain primarily, but also creating new connections to his hands." Naruto barely heard them. His consciousness had partially detached, drawn into a swirling vortex of images. A young woman with vibrant red hair, hands forming complex seals over a newborn infant. An ancient stone chamber, walls covered in spiral patterns that seemed to move of their own accord. Massive chains of glowing chakra erupting from multiple shinobi, binding what appeared to be a tailed beast. Eyes, crimson with spinning tomo and spiral patterns, reflecting in still water. Naruto. Tsunade's voice penetrated the visions. "Stay with us. What are you seeing?" "My mother," he gasped, the pain intensifying. "She's sealing something in me." As a baby, Tsunade's expression tightened. "As I suspected, genetic memory activation, triggered by the dojutsu awakening. His chakra is destabilizing," Sakura warned, the diagnostic seals flashing warning symbols. "The Nine Tails chakra is responding," Hinata reported, Byakugan focused intently. "But strangely, it's not interfering. It's adapting to the new pathways." Naruto felt the familiar burn of the Nine Tails chakra, but instead of the usual sensation of it fighting against his control, the energy seemed to flow naturally into the new spiral patterns throughout his system. With a gasp, his eyes snapped open, now crimson with 3 tomo. Surrounded by slowly rotating spiral patterns. "The Whirlpool Sharingan," Tsunade breathed, the name coming to her seemingly from nowhere. So the legends were true. Naruto's enhanced vision took everything at once. The precise flow of chakra through everyone in the room, the complex structure of the diagnostic seals, even the layered barriers protecting the facility. More than just seeing, he understood what he was seeing, comprehending the purpose and function of each chakra formation. "I can see everything," he whispered. "The way your diagnostic jutsu works, the structure of Hinata's Byakugan chakra. Even the Nine Tails seal inside me. Can you deactivate it?" Tsunade asked cautiously. Naruto frowned, concentrating. After a moment, the crimson glow faded, his eyes returning to their natural blue. The effort left him momentarily drained. "Fascinating," Tsunade murmured. "Similar chakra expenditure to the Sharingan, but with different pathway utilization." She turned to Hinata. "What did you observe during the activation?" Hinata stepped forward, professional demeanor momentarily overcoming her usual shyness around Naruto. "The spiral pathways fully activated, creating a complete secondary chakra network overlaying his normal pathways. Most unusually, this network seemed to interface with the Nine Tails chakra, redirecting it throughout his system in controlled amounts. That explains the lack of negative side effects we'd typically see with Jinchuriki chakra utilization," Tsunade mused. "The spiral pathways are acting as a filter or converter." Sakura looked up from the diagnostic seals. Expression troubled. "Lady Tsunade, these readings, they're unlike anything in our medical records. His chakra capacity has nearly doubled, and the quality has changed. It's denser, more potent. Tsunade nodded grimly. The Uzumaki were known for their exceptional chakra. It seems this dojutsu has fully awakened that genetic potential. Naruto listened to their clinical discussion with growing impatience. So what does all this mean? What exactly is happening to me? Tsunade turned to him, expression softening slightly. It means, Naruto, that you've awakened an ability that was sealed away before your birth. A dojutsu that appears to combine elements of the Sharingan with unique Uzumaki chakra properties. The Whirlpool Sharingan. Naruto repeated the name she'd used earlier. But how is that even possible? I'm not an Uchiha. Tsunade hesitated, clearly weighing how much to reveal. Genetic inheritance is complex, particularly when it involves chakra-based bloodline traits. Your mother's Uzumaki lineage combined with your father's genetic makeup appears to have created the potential for this ability. And someone knew about it, Naruto added, recalling the masked attacker. Someone knew and deliberately triggered it. Yes, Tsunade agreed grimly. Which raises serious questions about who possesses such knowledge and what their intentions might be. Before the conversation could continue, the door opened and Shizune entered hurriedly. Lady Tsunade, forgive the interruption, but we've received an urgent communication from Kakashi's team. Tsunade's expression sharpened. Report. They've discovered unusual sealing formulas at the border outpost, Shizune explained. Identical to descriptions of ancient Uzushiogakure protection seals. And, she hesitated, glancing at Naruto, they found a message. Addressed specifically to the heir of the Crimson Spiral. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Naruto. What did the message say? He asked quietly. Shizune produced a sealed scroll. Kakashi sent this directly. It's sealed with blood recognition jutsu. It will only open for you. Naruto accepted the scroll cautiously. As his fingers touched the paper, the seal glowed briefly before dissolving. He unrolled it slowly, revealing elegant calligraphy in deep crimson ink. The awakening is only the beginning. Blood calls to blood. When the spiral eyes see clearly, return to the whirlpool's heart where your mother once stood. The scattered remnants await their heir. Asterisk. He read it aloud, the W. Words seeming to resonate with something deep within his consciousness. It's an invitation, Hinata observed quietly. Or a summons. It's a trap, Tsunade countered flatly. One specifically designated to lure you away from Konoha's protection. Naruto stared at the message, conflicting emotions warring within him. After a lifetime of believing himself an orphan without heritage, the sudden elation of this connection to his mother's clan was overwhelming. I need to know more, he said finally. About the Uzumaki, about this dojutsu, about what my mother sealed away and why. Tsunade sighed heavily. I understand that, but rushing blindly toward an unknown enemy is exactly what they want. So what do we do? Sakura asked, looking between Naruto and the Hokage. We proceed carefully, Tsunade decided. First, Naruto needs to learn to control this ability. Based on what we've observed, it has tremendous potential but also significant risks. I'll help, Hinata offered immediately. Then blushed as everyone turned toward her. The Hyuga have extensive training methods for dojutsu control. Some might be adaptable to Naruto-kun's situation. Tsunade considered this. That's not a bad idea. The fundamentals of chakra control for visual techniques would be similar. She turned to Naruto. You'll train under supervision. No independent experimentation, understood? We don't know the full capabilities or limitations of this ability yet. Naruto nodded reluctantly, still processing everything that had happened. And the message, the stuff about returning to where my mother stood. Kakashi's team will continue their investigation, Tsunade replied. For now, we focus on understanding and controlling your awakened abilities. As the discussion continued, Naruto found his thoughts drifting again. The visions he'd experienced weren't just random images. They felt like memories, his mother's memories, perhaps, or something even more ancient passed down through Uzumaki blood. The masked shinobi had called him heir of the Crimson Spiral, a title that resonated oddly within him. Heir to what, exactly? A destroyed village, a scattered clan, or something more, a legacy or purpose that had been deliberately concealed. One thing was becoming increasingly clear: the attack hadn't been random. Someone had been watching him, waiting for the right moment to trigger this awakening. The question was, why now? Night had fallen over Konoha by the time Naruto was released from the medical facility. Tsunade had insisted on a comprehensive battery of tests, cataloging every aspect of his newly manifested abilities and altered chakra system. Remember, she'd warned before dismissing him, absolute secrecy. Report any changes immediately, no matter how minor they seem. And no attempting to activate the Whirlpool Sharingan without supervision. Now, as he walked slowly through the quiet village streets toward his apartment, Naruto found himself hyperaware of his surroundings. Even without the dojutsu active, his senses seemed sharper, more attuned to the subtle flows of chakra around him. Naruto-kun. The soft voice startled him from his thoughts. Hinata stood a few paces away, having apparently waited for him outside the medical facility. Hinata, what are you still doing here? She stepped forward, moonlight illuminating her pale features. I wanted to make sure you were all right. The testing seemed intensive. The genuine concern in her voice touched him. Yeah, it was pretty rough. But I'm okay. Just a lot to process, you know. Hinata nodded, falling into step beside him as they walked. For several minutes, they continued in companionable silence. Thank you, Naruto said finally. For everything today. For helping me get back to the village. For staying during all those tests, for offering to help with training. You don't need to thank me, Hinata replied, her voice stronger than usual despite its softness. I care about what happens to you. The simple sincerity of the statement caught Naruto off guard. He'd always known Hinata was kind, perhaps the kindest person among their generation of shinobi, but he'd rarely been the direct recipient of such straightforward concern. Still, it means a lot, he insisted. Especially with how weird everything is right now. They approached a fork in the path, one way leading toward Naruto's apartment. The other toward the Hyuga compound. Hinata, Naruto began hesitantly, when you said the Hyuga have training methods that might help, did you mean that? Yes, she answered without hesitation. The principles of chakra control and ocular focus are similar across different dojutsu. I could show you some techniques tomorrow, if you'd like. I would, Naruto said, surprising himself with his eagerness. If it's not too much trouble. A small smile curved Hinata's lips, transforming her ordinarily solemn features. It's no trouble. Meet me at Training Ground 17 at sunrise. It's usually empty, and the forest provides good cover. Sunrise, Naruto agreed, returning her smile. It's a date. The word choice made Hinata's cheeks color visibly even in the moonlight. But she didn't stammer or faint as she might have in the past. Instead, she nodded firmly. Good night, Naruto-kun. Try to rest. Dojutsu activation can be physically taxing. With that, she turned toward the path leading to her family compound, leaving Naruto to continue alone to his apartment. As he climbed the stairs to his modest dwelling, exhaustion finally caught up with him. The events of the day felt increasingly surreal. The attack, the awakening, the revelations about his heritage. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Something fundamental had changed within him. Inside his apartment, Naruto moved mechanically through his evening routine, mind still churning with unanswered questions. As he prepared for bed, his gaze fell on a small mirror hanging near his bathroom sink. Leaning closer, he studied his reflection. The familiar blue eyes, whisker marks, and unruly blonde hair. Nothing visibly different, yet he felt profoundly changed. Who am I really? He murmured to his reflection. What else don't I know about myself? The mirror offered no answers, only his own troubled expression looking back at him. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by fragments of visions, spiral patterns. Crimson eyes, chains of glowing chakra, and always, just at the edge of recognition, a woman with vibrant red hair performing complex sealing techniques. In the deepest part of the night, Naruto's dreams shifted. He found himself standing on a stone platform overlooking a village built around a natural whirlpool. The architecture was unlike anything in the 5G. Reet nations, buildings that seemed to grow from the very rock, marked with spiral motifs and complex sealing formulas. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice asked from behind him. Before they destroyed it, of course. Naruto turned to find the masked figure from the forest standing nearby, observing the dreamscape village. This is a dream, Naruto stated flatly. You're not really here. The masked figure tilted their head. Are you certain? Dreams have different meanings for those with the Whirlpool Sharingan. Sometimes they're memories. Sometimes they're messages. Sometimes they're meetings. What do you want from me? Naruto demanded. Why did you attack me? Why trigger this dojutsu? Attack you? The figure sounded almost amused. I awakened what was rightfully yours. What W? As sealed away out of fear and short-sightedness. My mother had her reasons, Naruto countered defensively, though he remained uncertain what those reasons might have been. Indeed she did, the figure agreed. Kushina was nothing if not protective. But she couldn't have foreseen everything. The world has changed since she made that decision. Naruto studied the masked figure warily. You knew my mother. I knew many Uzumaki. Came the cryptic reply. Before Uzushiogakure fell. Before the great scattering. Who are you? The figure approached slowly, stopping a few paces away. Someone. Who remembers what others have forgotten. Someone who recognizes what you could become. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get. For now. The masked figure gestured toward the dreamscape village below. This is your heritage, Naruto Uzumaki. A legacy of power, wisdom, and sealing arts beyond anything the 5 great nations currently possess. Your mother was not the last Uzumaki. Merely the last to openly claim the name in Konoha. There are others, scattered, hidden, some knowing what they are, others ignorant of their heritage. The masked figure turned back to him. Quote, the awakening of the Whirlpool Sharingan will draw them. Blood calls to blood, especially when it manifests in power. The dream began to fragment, the edges of the dreamscape dissolving like ink in water. Wait, Naruto called as the masked figure started to fade. I still have questions. Of course you do, the figure replied, voice growing distant. Finding the answers is part of your journey. But remember, not everyone in Konoha wants those answers found. Ask yourself why your heritage was kept from you for so long. As the dream collapsed entirely, the masked figure's final words echo. Ed. When you're ready to learn the truth, follow the spiral to its center. Naruto jerked awake, body drenched in cold sweat. The dream remained vivid in his mind, unlike ordinary dreams that typically faded upon waking. Outside his window, the first hints of dawn were appearing on the horizon. Soon he would meet Hinata for training, taking the first steps toward controlling his newly awakened abilities. But the masked figure's parting words lingered, raising uncomfortable questions about Konoha's role in concealing his heritage. Had Tsunade told him everything? What other secrets might be hidden in redacted mission reports and sealed archives? As he rose to prepare for the day, Naruto caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window glass. For just a moment, his eyes flashed crimson. The Whirlpool Sharingan activating spontaneously before fading back to blue. The power was there, just beneath the surface, waiting to be mastered. And with it, perhaps, the truth about his mother's clan and the legacy he had unknowingly inherited. Elsewhere in Konoha, in an underground chamber accessible only to those with the highest security clearance, 3 elders gathered around a table strewn with ancient scrolls. It has begun, Homura Mitokado stated gravely. The Uzumaki dojutsu has awakened in the 9 Tails Jinchuriki. This complicates matters significantly, Kaharu Udatane replied, her aged fingers tracing a spiral pattern on one of the yellowed documents. The fail-safes Kushina put in place have obviously been compromised. The question, Danzo Shimura interjected, single visible eye narrowing, is who possesses the knowledge to bypass an Uzumaki seal of that complexity. Very few remain with such expertise. Regardless, Kaharu said, we must take action. If the boy fully masters this ability and discovers the truth about Uzushiyogakure's fall, the political ramifications would be problematic, Homura agreed. Particularly given current tensions with Kurigakure. Danzo rose from his seat, expression unreadable. I still have assets that can handle this situation discreetly. Before matters escalate further, Tsunade will protect the boy, Kaharu warned. She has too much sentiment regarding Kushina and Minato's legacy. Then we must be more creative in our approach, Danzo replied smoothly. The re-emergence of Uzumaki blood traits presents both danger and opportunity. We simply need to ensure it serves Konoha's interests rather than threatening them. As the elders continued their clandestine discussion, the first rays of sunlight crept across Konoha. illuminating a village unaware of the ancient powers stirring within its walls, or the conspiracy that had kept those powers buried for generations. At the edge of the village, a solitary figure in a crimson-patterned mask observed the sunrise from a concealed position. "It has begun," they murmured. "The heir awakens to his birthright. Soon, the scattered remnants will return, and Uzumaki legacy will rise again from the ashes." With a flicker of movement too swift for ordinary eyes to track, the figure vanished, leaving no trace of their presence save a small spiral pattern burned into the tree bark where they had stood. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Heritage Unbound. Dew clung to the grass at Training Ground 17, refracting the first golden rays of sunrise into countless miniature prisms. Naruto arrived early, his body tired but his mind too restless for proper sleep after the previous night's strange dream. The clearing stood empty, ringed by ancient tea trees whose canopy filtered the morning light into dappled patterns across the forest floor. He'd chosen civilian clothing rather than his usual shinobi attire, a precaution against drawing attention. Tsunade's warnings about secrecy still echoed in his mind. Whatever this power was, multiple factions clearly had interest in it, none of them necessarily benevolent. The subtle shift in air press. You were behind him registered before any sound. Naruto turned, finding Hinata approaching through the trees. She too had opted for understated clothing, dark pants and a lavender jacket without the usual Hyuga clan markings. "Good morning," she greeted, her voice soft yet clear in the morning stillness. "Did you sleep well?" "Not really," Naruto admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "Too much happened yesterday." Hinata nodded, understanding in her pale eyes. "That's understandable. Dojutsu awakening can be disorienting, even when expected." The casual reference to her own experience with the Byakugan reminded Naruto how little he actually knew about the inherited visual powers that several Konoha clans possessed. His education had focused on practical application rather than theoretic understanding, a gap that now seemed critically important. "Before we begin," Hinata said, moving to the center of the clearing, "I should explain that Hyuga training methods are traditionally clan-restricted. What I'm sharing with you is adapted from those techniques, not the secret forms themselves." "I appreciate it anyway," Naruto responded sincerely. "I've got no idea how to control this thing." Hinata smiled briefly. "First, we should establish what triggers the activation. With the Byakugan, it's a specific chakra pathway connected to our intent. For the Sharingan," she hesitated, obviously uncomfortable discussing another clan's techniques. "From what I understand, it often activates initially under emotional stress, then becomes controllable through chakra manipulation. The masked shinobi forced it somehow," Naruto recalled, "with that sealing jutsu. Then it happened again during Tsunade's examination." "Try closing your eyes," Hinata instructed, her teaching voice surprisingly confident compared to her usual hesitant manner. "Focus on the sensation you experienced when it activated. Not the external trigger, but how it felt internally." Naruto complied, shutting his eyes and concentrating on the memory. The initial pain, followed by the rush of energy through unfamiliar pathways. The heightened awareness, the ability to see chakra patterns. "There's this sort of spiral feeling," he described haltingly, "like my chakras spinning through new channels, especially around my eyes." "Try directing chakra along that spiral pattern," Hinata suggested. "Gently at first." Naruto focused, guiding his energy through the newly formed pathways. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, abruptly, warmth bloomed behind his eyes, spreading outward through his chakra system. "It's working," he murmured. "I can feel it building." "Open your eyes slowly," Hinata instructed. When Naruto's eyelids lifted, the world appeared transformed. Colors intensified, movements slowed perceptibly. And most strikingly, chakra became visible, flowing through Hinata's body in luminous pathways, circulating in the plants and trees around them, even lingering in faint traces where animals had recently passed. "I can see everything," he whispered in awe. Hinata activated her Byakugan, veins becoming prominent around her eyes. "The chakra configuration is stabilizing," she observed. "More controlled than yesterday." The world through his enhanced vision fascinated Naruto. Unlike his brief experiences the previous day, he now had the opportunity to truly explore what he was seeing. Hinata's chakra network appeared as an intricate lattice of glowing channels, concentrated most intensely around her eyes. More surprisingly, he found he could perceive the saint rupture of her Byakugan itself, the specific way chakra flowed through specialized ocular pathways to create her clan's famous all-seeing vision. "This is incredible," he murmured. "I can actually see how your Byakugan works." Hinata's expression registered surprise. "That shouldn't be possible. The internal structure of dojutsu is usually imperceptible even to other eye technique users. It's like, I can see the blueprint behind it," Naruto attempted to explain. "The way the chakra channels are arranged to create the effect." This revelation clearly unsettled Hinata, though she maintained her composure. "That's unprecedented. Even the Sharingan typically copies techniques by observing the external chakra manipulation, not by perceiving the internal structure directly." As they discussed this discovery, Naruto noticed something else, a subtle drain on his chakra reserves. "Not severe, but steady. It uses chakra continuously," he noted. "Like Kakashi-sensei's Sharingan." Hinata nodded. "Most dojutsu require energy to maintain. Learning to minimize that consumption is essential for extended use." She hesitated before adding, "Though your Uzumaki heritage might give you an advantage there. Your clan was known for exceptional chakra reserves." The casual reference to his clan sparked a complex surge of emotions in Naruto. Pride at the connection, frustration at how little he knew, anger that this heritage had been kept from him for so long. "What else do you know about the Uzumaki?" he asked, unable to keep a hint of intensity from his voice. Hinata blinked, surprised by the sudden shift in topic. "Not much beyond what's in the historical texts. They were seal masters from Uzushiogakure, allies of Konoha since its founding. Their village was destroyed during the Second Shinobi World War. And no one thought this was something I should know." The bitterness in his tone surprised even him. Compassion filled Hinata's expression. "Many clan histories were R.E. moved from the academy curriculum after the Third Shinobi World War. It wasn't just yours." She paused, then added quietly, "But yes, someone should have told you personally." Her simple acknowledged GM. End of the injustice done to him. Not dismissing it or making excuses, soothed some of Naruto's rising anger. "Sorry," he said, taking a deep breath. "It's just frustrating to learn all this now, when apparently it's been part of me all along." "Your feelings are valid," Hinata responded with unexpected directness. "But right now, we should focus on your training. Emotional fluctuations can affect dojutsu control." The practical advice grounded him. "Right, so what's next?" "Deactivation," she explained. "As important as activating the technique is knowing how to turn it off efficiently. With the Byakugan, we visualize the chakra flow reversing direction." Naruto concentrated on the spiral pathways he could now consciously perceive, imagining the energy flow gradually slowing, then reversing. To his surprise, the technique disengaged smoothly, the world returning to normal perception. "I did it." The accomplishment, though small, filled him with satisfaction. Hinata smiled, genuine pleasure lighting her usually reserved features. "Excellent. Let's practice the activation and deactivation sequence several more times until it becomes fluid." For the next hour, they worked methodically through exercises designed to enhance Naruto's control. Each time he activated the Whirlpool Sharingan, the process became smoother, the chakra drain lessened slightly. Hinata proved an excellent teacher, patient, observant, and precise in her instructions. "You're making remarkable progress," she noted as they took a brief rest. "It usually takes Hyuga children months to achieve this level of control with the Byakugan." "I have a good teacher," Naruto replied with a grin that made Hinata's cheeks color slightly. "And honestly, it doesn't feel completely new. More like remembering something I once knew." "Genetic memory," Hinata suggested. "Some clan techniques seem to be partially encoded in chakra pathways themselves. It's why bloodline limits tend to express similarly across generations, even without direct training." As she spoke, Naruto sensed a flicker of movement at the edge of the clearing, too deliberate for wildlife. Without thinking, he activated the Whirlpool Sharingan, instantly detecting a concealed chakra signature. "Someone's watching us," he whispered, not turning his head toward the observer. Hinata casually adjusted her position, activating her Byakugan, and with minimal visible change in her expression. "Northeast quadrant, approximately 40 meters." Anbu chakra signature, but unusual configuration. Tsunade keeping tabs on us. Naruto suggested, maintaining the appearance of normal training. Possibly, Hinata replied, though uncertainty tinged her voice. But there's something irregular about the chakra pattern. Standard Anbu operatives Avenue-specific modifications to their basic pathways due to specialized training. The concealed observer remained motionless, seemingly content to watch from a distance. After several tense minutes, the presence withdrew, moving swiftly through the forest canopy away from the village. They're leaving, Hinata confirmed, tracking the retreating figure with her Byakugan. Heading northeast at high speed. Naruto deactivated his dojutsu, frowning. I should report this to Granny Tsunade. Agreed, Hinata said, releasing her own technique. But first, I think we should continue with one more exercise. If someone is monitoring your progress, it's even more important that you master basic control quickly. The remainder of their session focused on sustaining the dojutsu with minimal chakra expenditure, a critical skill for any extended use. By the time the sun had fully risen above the treetops, Naruto had made significant progress, though fatigue was beginning to set in. That's enough for today, Hinata finally declared. Noticing his increasing strain, overdoing it could damage your chakra pathways while they're still adapting. As they gathered their belongings, Naruto turned to her impulsively. Hinata, thank you. Really, I don't know if I could figure this out on my own. She met his gaze with unusual steadiness. You would have, eventually. You've always been resourceful. A small smile curved her lips. But I'm glad I could help. The simple sincerity of her response struck Naruto anew. Throughout his life, few people had offered him assistance without ulterior motives or professional obligation. We should report to Lady Tsunade about our observer, Hinata reminded him as they prepared to leave the training ground. Yeah, Naruto agreed, his expression growing serious again. And I have some questions for her too. About the Uzumaki. The Hokage's office hummed with tense energy. Tsunade sat behind her desk, fingers steepled as she processed Yuto and Hinata's report about their mysterious observer. And you're certain it wasn't one of our Anbu? She questioned sharply. The chakra signature had irregularities inconsistent with Konoha's standard modifications. Hinata explained, her formal tone reflecting years of clan training in official settings. Additionally, the operative departed village boundaries rather than reporting back within the security perimeter. Tsunade's lips pressed into a thin line. This confirms my concerns. Word of your condition is spreading faster than anticipated. She turned to Shizune, who stood nearby with a stack of scrolls. Double the perimeter security. I want sensory-type shinobi on every watch rotation. Yes, Lady Tsunade. Shizune bowed slightly before departing to implement the orders. When the door closed behind her assistant, Tsunade turned her attention back to Naruto and Hinata. Show me your progress. Naruto nodded, centering himself briefly before channeling chakra along the spiral pathways. His eyes transformed smoothly, the crimson irises with their distinctive pattern causing Tsunade to lean forward with professional interest. Impressive control for less than 24 hours since awakening, she observed, glancing at Hinata. Your training methods proved effective. Hinata inclined her head in acknowledgement of the compliment. Naruto-kun is a fast learner when properly instructed. Something in her tone, a subtle emphasis implying criticism of previous teaching methods, surprised both Naruto and Tsunade. The Hokage raised an eyebrow but chose not to comment on it. I have questions, Naruto stated, deactivating the dojutsu but maintaining his serious demeanor. About the Uzumaki clan. About my mother. About why all of this was kept from me. Tsunade sighed heavily, seeming to age years in moments. I expected this. She rose from her desk and moved to activate a complex privacy seal, far more elaborate than the standard version used for sensitive meetings. What I'm about to share is classified at the highest level, she began, returning to her seat. Some of it predates my time as Hokage. Some of it I've only recently pieced together myself from fragmented records. The gravity in her voice captured their complete attention. The Uzumaki clan wasn't merely allied with Konoha, they were instrumental in its founding. Your distant relative, Mito Uzumaki, married the first Hokage, bringing sealing techniques that proved critical during the village's early conflicts. This wasn't entirely new information to Naruto, who had learned Bits of this history during his training with Jiraiya. Uzushiogakure itself was established decades before Konoha, on an island in what is now Kurigakure territory, Tsunade continued. It was Reno, WNED for three things: longevity of its citizens, mastery of sealing techniques, and a unique chakra quality that manifested most prominently in their red hair. She paused, eyes distant with memory. My grandmother, Mito Uzumaki, lived well past 100 years, her vitality barely diminished with age. This biological resilience, combined with their sealing prowess, made the Uzumaki both valued allies and feared potential enemies. Is that why their village was destroyed? Naruto asked quietly. Tsunade's expression darkened. Officially, Uzushiogakure fell during a coordinated attack by several nations during the Second Shinobi World War. But the truth is more complex. She withdrew an aged scroll from a hidden compartment in her desk. The paper yellowed with time, sealed with a spiral pattern in faded red ink. This contains the personal account of an Uzumaki elder who survived the destruction. It was entrusted to the Hokage's office with specific instructions that it be given to any Uzumaki who awakened the clan's dojutsu. Naruto stared at the scroll, emotions conflicting within him. So you knew about the Whirlpool Sharingan? Not exactly, Tsunade corrected. The existence of an Uzumaki dojutsu was mentioned in certain historical texts, but it was considered mythological rather than factual. No confirmed cases had been documented in the medical literature. She pushed the scroll across the desk toward him. This is yours by right. But I caution you, knowledge can be as dangerous as ignorance. Naruto accepted the scroll with reverent hands. The seal reacted to his touch, glowing briefly before dissolving, recognizing his Uzumaki chakra. I don't understand, Hinata spoke up, her analytical mind focusing on a key inconsistency. If the Uzumaki were such valued allies, why didn't Konoha intervene when their village was attacked? Tsunade's expression grew guarded. That, Hinata, is one of the darker chapters in our village's history. Official records state that warning came too late for effective response. The elder's account in that scroll tells a different story. The implication hung heavy in the air, that Konoha might have deliberately failed its oldest ally. Was my mother the only survivor? Naruto asked. No, Tsunade replied, but she was among the few who came to Konoha. Others scattered across the continent, hiding their identities or seeking refuge in distant lands. Over time, the Uzumaki diaspora largely vanished from official record keeping. But they're still out there, Naruto stated with certainty. The masked shinobi said as much. Tsunade's eyes sharpened. When did they tell you this? Naruto hesitated, realizing he'd revealed something from his dream without meaning to. I had a dream last night. The masked figure was in it, talking about scattered Uzumaki descendants. A dream-walking technique, Tsunade muttered, concern evident in her voice. That suggests a level of connection to you that's deeply troubling. She leaned forward, expression intense. Naruto, you must be careful. Dreams for those with certain dojutsu can be more than just subconscious imaginings. They can be communications, invasions, even battlefields. The figure mentioned others with Uzumaki blood. Naruto pressed, unwilling to be sidetracked. Said they would be drawn to me now that the Whirlpool Sharingan has awakened. That's consistent with certain historical accounts, Tsunade acknowledged reluctantly. The awakening of significant bloodline traits can supposedly create resonances detectable by others of the same lineage. It's how some scattered clans reconnected after the Warring States period. So there could be other Uzumaki out there who might sense what's happened to me. Theoretically, though after generations of diaspora and intermarriage, the blood connection might be too diluted in most cases. Tsunade's expression suggested she was withholding additional information. Naruto sensed her reservation. What aren't you telling me? The directness of his question seemed to catch the Hokage off guard. After a moment's hesitation, she sighed. We've had intelligence for some time about an individual operating in the Eastern Territories who displayed certain Uzumaki characteristics. Red hair, unusual chakra reserves, exceptional sealing abilities. Who are they? Naruto demanded, leaning forward intently. Her name is Karen, Tsunade revealed reluctantly. Until recently, she was affiliated with Orochimaru as one of his research assistants and trackers. The mention of the rogue Sannin sent a chill through the room. Orochimaru's defection and subsequent crimes against Konoha remained raw wounds in the village's collective psyche. "Where is she now?" Hinata asked, her quiet voice breaking the momentary silence. "Unknown," Tsunade admitted. "She disappeared shortly after Orochimaru's last encounter with Jiraiya. Our intelligence suggests she may have gone independent rather than joining another hidden village." Naruto processed this information, mind racing with implications. Another Uzumaki, one with direct connections to Orochimaru's experiments and knowledge. The potential value of such a contact was obvious, as were the risks. "I need to find her," he stated firmly. "Absolutely not," Tsunade countered immediately. "You're still learning to control EWLY awakened dojutsu with unknown capabilities and limitations. The last thing you should be doing is hunting down a potential enemy agent with questionable loyalties." "She's not an enemy, she's family," Naruto argued, surprising himself with the intensity of his response. The concept of blood relations, something he'd never experienced, suddenly held profound significance. "Family by distant ancestry doesn't automatically ensure loyalty," Tsunade pointed out pragmatically. "My own grandfather's brother proved that thoroughly enough." The reference to Madara Uchiha hung heavily in the air. Hinata, sensing the escalating tension, intervened diplomatically. "Perhaps there's a middle approach," she suggested. "If this Karen truly possesses Uzumaki's sensory abilities, and if the awakening of the Whirlpool Sharingan creates a resonance as you suggested, might she not seek out Naruto-kun herself?" Tsunade considered this perspective, her expression thoughtful. "A reasonable possibility. Huff that presents its own security concerns. I could increase training with Naruto-kun," Hinata continued, her formal tone not entirely masking her personal investment in the suggestion. "Focus on techniques that would allow him to recognize and potentially counter unfamiliar sealing methods." The Hyuga archives contain some comparative studies of various clan approaches to chakra manipulation. The Hokage's eyebrow raised slightly at Hinata's willingness to share clan knowledge, something the traditionally secretive Hyuga rarely offered. "An interesting proposal, though I suspect Lord Hiashi might have reservations." "My father respects the Hokage's authority in matters of village security," Hinata replied with unexpected firmness. Something in her pale eyes suggested personal resolve beyond professional duty. Tsunade studied the young Hyuga heiress with new appreciation before turning back to Naruto. "Very well. Continued training under Hinata's guidance, with regular progress reports. Meanwhile, I'll have our intelligence division compile everything available on known Uzumaki descendants." She reached into her desk again, removing a small, weathered key. "There's also this." It opens a sealed section in the village archives. Materials related to Uzushiogakure and the Uzumaki clan were sequestered thereafter, certain incidents during the third Hokage's tenure. Naruto accepted the key, its significance clearly extending beyond mere physical access. "Why are you giving this to me now?" "Because keeping it from you would only drive you to seek information through less secure channels," Tsunade answered with blunt honesty. "Better you learn from authenticated sources than from whoever is manipulating events from the shadows." The pragmatic logic was classic Tsunade. Yet Naruto sensed something deeper in her decision, perhaps regret over previous secrets kept from him, or genuine concern for his development. "Thank you," he said sincerely, pocketing both the key and the ancient scroll. "For trusting me with this. Don't make me regret it," Tsunade replied, though her tone lacked genuine sternness. "The archives are restricted for good reason. Some knowledge is dangerous not because it's false, but because it's true." As Naruto and Hinata prepared to depart, the Hokage added a final warning: be vigilant. Whoever triggered this awakening has their own agenda. Until we understand their motives, assume any contact as potentially hostile. The gravity of her caution followed them as they left the tower, stepping into the bright midday sunlight that now seemed to illuminate a world far more complex than the one they'd known just days before. The Konoha archives occupied a sprawling underground complex beneath the Hokage Rock, its excess tense known to few outside the administrative and research divisions. Multiple security checkpoints guarded access to progressively more restricted sections, each requiring specific clearance. Naruto and Hinata presented their authorization scroll, signed by Tsunade herself, to the final checkpoint guardian, a silver-haired Jonin with perpetually half-lidded eyes suggesting boredom. His appearance was deceptive. Both knew his reputation as one of the village's most lethal sensory specialists. Restricted Section Epsilon, he read from the scroll, eyebrow raising slightly. Interesting choice for afternoon reading. Despite his casual tone, his chakra subtly probed their identities, confirming authenticity. Hokage's orders, Naruto replied simply. The guard nodded, performing a complex sequence of hand seals to deactivate the barrier seals protecting the final doorway. Standard protocols apply. No materials leave the room. No copying without explicit authorization. Chakra monitoring active throughout. The heavy door swung open, revealing a chamber significantly smaller than the main archives, perhaps 20 feet square, lined with sealed cabinets and preservation cases. The air carried the distinctive scent of chakra-treated preservation jutsu, along with the mustiness of documents rarely accessed. 2 hours, the guard informed them. After that, you'll need renewed authorization. When the door closed behind them, Hinata activated her Byakugan briefly to scan their surroundings. No additional observers, she confirmed. Though there are automated monitoring seals embedded in the walls. Naruto approached the first cabinet, applying the key Tsunade had provided to its intricate lock. The mechanism responded with a series of clicks before the drawer slid open, revealing neatly organized scrolls labeled in an unfamiliar script. I can't read these, he realized, examining the elegant spiral-infused symbols. Hinata leaned closer, studying the markings. It's ancient Uzumaki notation, similar to scripts preserved in the Hyuga historical archives, though more complex in structure. You can read it? Naruto asked, impressed. Not fluently, she admitted. But I recognize enough to identify general categories. This section appears to contain historical records, while that cabinet. She gestured to a sealed case across the room. Likely houses Ch. Nickel documentation on sealing techniques. They worked methodically, Hinata helping identify the most relevant materials while Naruto used the Whirlpool Sharingan intermittently to absorb and format ion at accelerated rates, a capability they'd discovered during morning training. One scroll particularly captured their attention, an account of Uzushiogekure's founding, complete with detailed maps of the original settlement. The island's natural geography featured prominently, especially the massive whirlpools that had given the village its name. The whirlpools weren't just geographical features, Hinata noted. Translating a passage, they were incorporated into the village's defense systems through specialized sealing arrays. Naruto studied the diagrams with growing fascination. These patterns, they're similar to what I see when I activate the dojutsu. Like the chakra naturally forms these configurations. As they continued their research, fragments of information began connecting into a more coherent picture. The Uzumaki clan had indeed possessed a rare dojutsu, though it manifested in perhaps one individual per generation. Its activation typically coincided with periods of clan crisis or significant chakra disruption. Listen to this, Hinata said, carefully translating from a particularly ancient text. The spiral eye manifests the unity of opposing forces, the center. I fugal expansion of Uzumaki vitality with the centripetal focus of the observer's gift. When balanced properly, it grants perception beyond normal boundaries of space and time. Observer's gift, Naruto questioned. I believe it's referencing a genetic contribution from another bloodline, Hinata theorized. Possibly related to what Tsunade mentioned about your father's lineage having compatible elements with Uzumaki traits. Further reading revealed tantalizing but incomplete references to the dojutsu's capabilities, enhanced perception, affinity for space-time techniques, unprecedented chakra visualization. And most intriguingly, the ability to comprehend and manipulate sealing formulas instinctively. That explains why I could counter that sealing technique during the attack, Naruto realized. I didn't know what I was doing consciously, but somehow I understood the structure well enough to reverse it. As their allocated research time neared its end, Naruto discovered a slim volume hidden behind larger scrolls in one of the drawers. Unlike the other materials, this book was bound in conventional style, its cover unmarked save for a small spiral symbol embossed in the leather. Opening it revealed pages filled with personal journal entries rather than formal documentation. The handwriting shifted between at least 3 different styles, suggesting multiple authors contributing over time. This is different, he noted, showing it to Hinata. More like personal notes than official records. She examined the text carefully. The script is more modern, and it's writ. In standard language rather than ancient Uzumaki. Perhaps notes compiled by Konoha researchers. Naruto skimmed through the pages, stopping abruptly when a familiar name caught his attention. Kushina, he whispered, fingers tracing the characters of his mother's name. The entry, dated nearly 30 years prior, described experiments with sealing techniques designed to suppress bloodline traits, specifically to prevent the manifestation of inherited dojutsu. Project Occlusion continues to present challenges, Naruto read aloud, voice growing tighter with each word. Subject KU has provided valuable insights into potential methodologies for bloodline suppression, though ethical concerns remain regarding generational application. The potential security implications of successful why sealing inherited traits would revolutionize clan management protocols. Hinata's expression reflected dawning horror as the implications became clear. They were using your mother to develop techniques for sealing away bloodline abilities across generations. Not just using her, Naruto corrected grimly, turning the page to reveal additional entries. She was actively participating, developing the techniques herself. Further reading revealed Kushina's apparent motivation, fear that combining her Uzumaki lineage with her husband's genetic background could produce unpredictable and potentially dangerous abilities in any offspring. The journal documented her creation of a specialized seal designed to be applied during pregnancy, suppressing specific chakra pathways in the developing child. She sealed away the Whirlpool Sharingan before I was even born, Naruto said quietly, the revelation landing like a physical blow. She didn't want me to have it. Hinata placed a gentle hand on his arm. She was trying to protect you, Naruto-kun. The entry mentions concerns about the technique attracting unwanted attention to her child. Before they could discuss further, a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere alerted them to another presence. Naruto activated the Whirlpool Sharingan instantly, detecting a chakra signature materializing from what had appeared to be empty space. Impressive reflexes, a female voice commented. The dojutsu enhances your sensory capabilities significantly. A figure emerged from a concealment technique so sophisticated it had been undetectable. Even to Hinata's Byakugan, a young woman perhaps a few years older than themselves, with vivid red hair and eyes the color of garnets. She wore nondescript traveling clothes, their plainness belied by subtle sealing patterns woven into the fabric. Uzumaki Karen, Naruto stated, recognizing her from Tsunade's description. A smile curved the woman's lips. And you're Uzumaki Naruto. Though I'll admit, your chakra signature has changed dramatically since I last sensed it. Hinata shifted subtly into a defensive stance, Byakugan activating. How did you bypass the archive security? Uzumaki seals were designed by my ancestors. Karen replied with casual confidence. Their modifications by Konoha security forces are unimaginative. Her gaze remained fixed on Naruto, particularly his eyes. So it's true. You've awakened it. How did you know? Naruto demanded, maintaining his guard despite the strange sense of familiarity he felt toward this unknown relative. Karen tapped her temple. I felt it. 3 days ago. A pulse of Uzumaki chakra so powerful it reached me halfway across the continent. Like a beacon suddenly illuminating after decades of darkness. She approached slowly, movements deliberately non-threatening. May I? She asked, gesturing toward his eyes. Naruto glanced at Hinata, who maintained her vigilant stance but nodded slightly, indicating she detected no immediate hostile intent. I won't deactivate it, he warned as Karen drew closer. I wouldn't expect you to, she replied, studying his eyes with intense scientific curiosity. Remarkable. The spiral pattern is fully developed, integrated perfectly with the Tomo structure. And your chakra pathways have reconfigured to accommodate the enhanced flow. Her clinical assessment reminded Naruto uncomfortably of Orochimaru's reputed analytical approach to bloodline traits. You worked for Orochimaru, he stated flatly. Karen's expression hardened momentarily. I survived Orochimaru, she corrected. There's a difference. Not all of us had the luxury of village protection or legendary Sannin mentors. The rebuke contained enough truth to give Naruto pause. Fair enough, he acknowledged. But why are you here now? Because the awakening changes everything, she replied, gesturing toward the journal they'd been examining. Kushina's seal was masterwork. It shouldn't have been breakable by anyone outside the direct bloodline. The fact that someone managed to trigger the dojutsu despite her precautions suggests either extraordinary skill or insider knowledge. You knew about the seal? Hinata asked, surprise evident in her voice. Not specifically about Naruto's, Karen clarified. But similar techniques were referenced in Orochimaru's research archives. Bloodline suppression was something of an obsession for him, the opposite of his enhancement experiments. She turned back to Naruto. What's important is that someone wanted this power awakened in you badly enough to orchestrate an elaborate triggering scenario. The question is, why now? The directness of her analysis aligned with Naruto's own suspicions. Despite her dubious background, her Uzumaki heritage and apparent chi knowledge made her a potentially valuable ally. Do you know others? He asked. Other Uzumaki descendants. A complicated expression crossed Karen's features, caution warring with something that might have been longing. A few. Most don't know what they are. Generations of hiding, changing names, intermarrying with local populations, the diaspora fragmented the bloodline significantly. But you've found some, Naruto pressed. I've identified possibilities, she corrected. Confirming Uzumaki lineage isn't simple without blood testing or chakra analysis. She gestured toward his eyes. Though that might change with your awakening. The dojutsu should theoretically allow you to recognize chakra signatures with Uzumaki characteristics. The potential to identify scattered members of his mother's clan, people who shared his heritage, possibly even distant relatives, filled Naruto with unexpected emotion. Would you help me find them? He asked directly. Karen's eyebrows rose in surprise at the straightforward request. After a moment, she laughed softly. Direct approach. Very Uzumaki of you. Her expression grew more serious. Finding them is one thing. Determining their trustworthiness is another matter entirely. Not everyone will welcome the re-emergence of clan connections. Why not? Naruto questioned. Because some have built lives specifically designed to hide their heritage, she explained. Others may have allegiances to villages or organizations that would view Uzumaki resurgence as threatening. And a few, she hesitated. A few might have their own ambitions regarding the clan's legacy. Before the conversation could continue, a subtle vibration in the floor alerted them to someone approaching the archive entrance. Security patrol, Hinata confirmed with her Byakugan. 2 Jonin-level chakra signatures. Karen nodded, already forming hand seals. Our conversation needs to continue elsewhere. I have information about your attacker that shouldn't be overheard by Konoha's administration. The implication that village leadership might be compromised raised immediate concerns, but the approaching guards left little time for debate. How do we find you? Naruto asked quickly. Karen completed her sequence of seals, pressing her palm against his forearm. A small spiral seal briefly materialized on his skin before fading to invisibility. That will guide you, she explained. Activate your dojutsu after midnight and it will show the way. She turned to Hinata with evaluating eyes. The Hyuga can come too. Her Byakugan might prove useful. And her chakra signature suggests trustworthiness. Before either could respond, Karen performed another series of hand signs, her form dissolving into scattered particles that dispersed through the room, a transportation technique unlike any standard Konoha variant. Seconds later, the archive door opened to reveal the same guard who had admitted them earlier. Time's up, he announced, shish. Owing no indication he suspected anything unusual. Find what you needed. Naruto closed the journal and returned it to its place, mind racing with implications of everything they'd discovered. Some of it, he answered truthfully. We'll probably need to return. As they exited the restricted section, Hinata waited until they were beyond the final checkpoint before speaking in a near whisper. Quote, the seal she placed on you, I couldn't see it clearly with my Byakugan. It has unusual properties. Dangerous? Naruto asked, equally quiet. She shook her head. I don't think so. But sophisticated. Beyond standard tracking or communication functions. The revelation that Karen possessed sealing techniques capable of evading Byakugan detection was concerning yet intriguing. It suggested an old GE preserved from Uzushiogakure's advanced methodologies, potential resources for understanding his awakening abilities. We should tell Tsunade, Hinata suggested as they emerged into the late afternoon sunlight. Naruto hesitated, uncharacteristically conflicted. His instinct had always been to trust the Hokage implicitly, yet Karen's warning about village administration, combined with the Distu R.B. Ing research journal they'd discovered, raised uncomfortable questions about Konoha's historical relationship with the Uzumaki clan. Let's wait, he decided finally. Hear what she has to say tonight. If it seems dangerous or manipulative, we go straight to Granny Tsunade. Hinata studied him for a long moment before nodding. Agreed, but we proceed with caution. Karen's association with Orochimaru, however involuntary, suggests she may have complex motivations. As they parted ways, Hinata toward the Hyuga compound, Naruto toward his apartment, neither noticed the Anbu operative observing from a nearby rooftop, nor the brief communication scroll the masked figure dispatched toward the Hokage tower. Midnight found Naruto restlessly pacing his apartment, waiting for the appointed time to activate the guidance seal. The intervening hours had been filled with studying the ancient Uzumaki scroll Tsunade had provided, its contents revealing a history far richer and more complex than anything taught in Konoha's academy. Uzushiogakure had not merely been a village allied with Konoha, it had been a civilization unto itself, with unique cultural practices, philosophical traditions, and technological developments centered around their unparalleled understanding of sealing arts. Most strikingly, the scroll detailed the village's fall with brutal clarity. While official history described a coordinated attack by enemy nations, the Elder's account painted a more nuanced picture, one involving betrayal from within the alliance system, specifically failure of promised support from certain Konoha factions. A soft knock at his window interrupted his reading. Hinata perched on the narrow ledge outside, dressed in dark clothing devoid of clan markings. She'd clearly chosen Alpha over official channels for this meeting. Naruto opened the window, noticing the subtle changes in her appearance, hair tied back practically, standard shinobi tools replaced with specialized iqui. P meant suggesting preparation for unknown circumstances. Any surveillance? He asked quietly as she slipped inside. 2 Anbu Station 3 buildings north, she reported. Standard rotation pattern. We have approximately 8 minutes before their next perimeter check. The precision of her information impressed him. Hinata's capabilities had always been substantial, but recent events seemed to have catalyzed a new confidence in employing them. I've been studying the scroll, Naruto told her, gesturing toward the ancient document. It's not what I expected. The history we learned about Uzushiogakure, about its relationship with Konoha, it's incomplete at best. Most official histories are, Hinata replied with unexpected cynicism. Clan records often tell very different stories than village archives. This glimpse of political awareness surprised Naruto, who had always perceived Hinata as somewhat removed from such matters despite her position as clan heiress. It's almost time, she noted. Glancing at the clock, the seal should activate soon. Naruto nodded, channeling chakra to manifest the Whirlpool Sharingan. The world immediately transformed into the Now family. AR enhanced perception, chakra networks visible, movements predictable, details crystallizing with preternatural clarity. The invisible seal Karen had placed on his arm shimmered into visibility, an L-Gant spiral formation interwoven with directional markers. As the final stroke of midnight sounded from the distant village clock tower, the pattern began to rotate, one section aligning to point northeast. It's working, Naruto confirmed, pointing toward the forest boundary. We should move quickly, Hinata advised. The Anbu will be completing their perimeter check soon. They exited through the window, using chakra-enhanced movement to traverse rooftops swiftly and silently. Naruto maintained the dojutsu active, following the seal's guidance while simultaneously monitoring their surroundings for observers. The village boundary approached, ordinarily heavily patrolled, but mysteriously vacant in the specific section their path traversed. This conspicuous absence of security raised immediate concerns. This isn't coincidence, Hinata whispered as they passed unchallenged through an area that should have hosted at least 2 sentry positions. Someone's created a deliberate gap in the patrol pattern. Karen, Naruto suggested, possibly, or someone with administrative access to security rotations. The implication that someone high in Konoha's hierarchy might be involved hung unspoken between them. Beyond the village perimeter, the guidance seal led them deeper into the forest, following no established path. After approximately 20 minutes of travel, they reached a small clearing dominated by an ancient oak. Nothing visibly distinguished the location, yet the seal indicated they had arrived at their destination. Below us, Hinata reported, Byakugan scanning the ground. There's a concealed chamber approximately 15 feet beneath the surface. One chakra signature present. Female. Substantial reserves, distinctive spiral pattern pathways consistent with Uzumaki lineage. Naruto approached the base of the oak, where his enhanced vision detected subtle sealing formulas carved into the bark, nearly invisible to normal perception. Instinctively, he channeled chakra into his palm and pressed it against the central pattern. The ground trembled slightly as a section of earth adjacent to the tree receded, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Chakra-fueled lanterns activated automatically as they appeared, illuminating a pathway downward. "After you, cousin," Karen's voice echoed from below. "Though I'd suggest deactivating that dojutsu to conserve chakra. The protective barriers down here might interact unpredictably with it." Naruto complied, returning his eyes to normal before descending the stairs with Hinata close behind. The passage opened into a surprisingly large chamber, clearly artificial but ancient in construction. The walls bore faded spiral motifs interspersed with sealing formulas so complex they appeared almost decorative. Karen waited at a stone table in the chamber's center, scrolls and maps spread across its surface. She'd changed into more formal attire, dark clothing with subtle Uzumaki spiral patterns woven into the fabric. "Welcome to one of the last intact Uzumaki safe houses in Fire Country," she greeted them, gesturing around the chamber. "Established during the Alliance formation, forgotten by all but a few after Uzushiogeku's fall. How did you find it?" Hinata asked, examining the ancient construction with obvious historical interest. "Orochimaru's research pointed to its existence," Karen explained. "Though accessing it required blood connection to the founding seals. Another advantage of our shared heritage," she added with a glance toward Naruto. The reference to their familial connection, however distant, produced a complex emotion in Naruto, something between hunger for connection and wariness of manipulation. "You said you had information about my attacker," he prompted, approaching the table to examine the materials spread across it. Karen nodded, indicating a detailed map marked with numerous annotations. "I've been tracking unusual chakra signatures across the continent for years, partially for Orochimaru initially, later for my own purposes. Approximately 3 months ago, a pattern emerged suggesting coordinated movement of individuals with trace Uzumaki chakra characteristics. Survivors of the diaspora," Hinata suggested. "Some, yes, but also others with specific interest in Uzumaki sealing techniques." Karen adjusted her glasses, expression growing serious. "Including your masked attacker, whom I believe is this individual." She indicated a dossier containing limited information about a shinobi identified only as Spiral, an operative connect. TED to multiple infiltration of secure archives housing sealing research. Former Anbu, specialized in deep cover operations, Karen explained. Disappeared from official records approximately 15 years ago. Presumed dead until resurfacing in connection with several incidents involving ancient sealing sites. "Any connection to known organizations?" Hinata asked, analytical mind categorizing potential threats. "None confirmed, though there are troubling correlations with certain elder factions within Konoha's governance structure." Karen's gaze fixed meaningfully on Naruto. Particularly those with historical interest in bloodline abilities and their applications. The implication sent a chill through Naruto, connecting to his recent discoveries about Project Occlusion in the restricted archives. "You're suggesting someone in Konoha's leadership might be behind this?" "I'm suggesting," Karen replied carefully, "that your mother's efforts to suppress your bloodline abilities weren't merely maternal caution. The journal you found today, I've seen similar documentation. Kushina Uzumaki discovered something that frightened her enough to seal away her own child's inheritance." "What?" Naruto demanded. "What could be so dangerous about these eyes?" Karen spread her hands in a gesture of limited knowledge. "That's what we need to discover. But I believe it connects to this." She unrolled an ancient scroll bearing a map of Uzushiogaku and its surroundings. Specifically, to whatever was housed in the central temple complex that multiple nations were willing to destroy an entire village to obtain. Hinata leaned forward, studying the map with her Byakugan active. "These sealing arrays surrounding the temple, they're similar to containment structures used for tailed beasts. But modified for something else. Precisely, Karen confirmed, impressed by the observation. The Uzumaki were renowned for their ability to contain tailed beasts, but their mastery of sea Ling extended to other applications, including the containment of certain bloodline abilities considered too dangerous for unrestricted use. Like the Whirlpool Sharingan, Naruto concluded, pieces beginning to connect in his mind. I believe so, Karen agreed. Though what specific aspect of the ability warranted such precautions remains unclear. So my mother sealed it away to protect me, Naruto reasoned. But now someone's deliberately triggered it. Why? What's changed? Karen's expression grew grim. International politics, for one. Relations between the 5 great nations have deteriorated significantly in recent months. Several smaller countries have begun exploring ancient weapons technologies as deterrents. And Uzumaki sealing techniques would qualify as such, Hinata noted. Her diplomatic training as clan heiress evident in her assessment. More than that, Karen continued. There's evidence suggesting coordinated interest in bloodline abilities that bridge conventional limitations, specifically dojutsu with unique applications beyond combat. The conversation paused as a subtle vibration shook the chamber, not an earthquake, but something more localized. We have company, Karen announced, moving swiftly to a sealing array embedded in the wall. Perimeter barriers have been triggered. Hinata activated her Byakugan, extending its range outward from their underground location. 4 individuals approaching from different directions. Coordinated movement patterns suggesting specialized training. Anbu-level chakra reserves, but signature modifications inconsistent with standard Konoha operatives. Root, Karen identified grimly. Danzo's private forces. They shouldn't know about this location unless we were followed, Naruto finished, adding his Whirlpool Sharingan to assess the developing situation. With his enhanced perception, he could detect not just the approaching operatives but the complex barrier seals surrounding the soft house. Ancient protections layered with more recent modifications, likely Karen's work. The barriers won't hold them for long, Karen warned, rapidly gathering the most critical documents. These aren't ordinary Anbu. They specialize in countering sealing techniques. We need to move, Hinata advised, continuing to track the intruders' movements. They're establishing a containment formation. Standard capture protocol rather than elimination. They want me alive, Naruto concluded. Because of the dojutsu, Karen nodded grimly, pressing her palm against a concealed panel in the chamber wall. A section of stone receded, revealing a narrow passage. Emergency exit. Leads to a ravine approximately half a mile east. We can separate there. I'll draw them north while you two head back toward Konoha. No, Naruto countered firmly. I'm not leaving you to face them alone. Something flickered in Karen's expression, surprise followed by what might have been genuine emotion. This isn't the time for Uzumaki stubbornness. Cousin, those operatives report directly to Danzo Shimura. If he captures you with the dojutsu active, you'll disappear into his private research facilities. Naruto-kun is right, Hinata interjected unexpectedly. Division of forces against superior opponents increases vulnerability. We move together, using coordinated techniques to break through their perimeter. Both Uzumaki turned toward her with similar expressions of surprise at her tactical assertiveness. Besides, she continued with quiet determination, I recognized one of the chakra signatures. Hyuga branch family member. Reassigned to special duties 3 years ago. This operation has political implications beyond just Naruto-kun's dojutsu. A distant explosion signaled the first barrier's collapse, emphasizing the urgency of their situation. Fine, Karen conceded, completing preparations to evacuate. But we'll need a diversion to break their containment formation. Naruto's mind raced, analyzing the tactical situation with unprecedented clarity through his enhanced perception. The typical shadow clone approach would be expected, but combined with his new abilities. I have an idea, he announced. Hands already forming familiar seals. But I'll need both of you to synchronize your techniques with mine precisely. As he outlined his strategy, Karen's expression shifted from skepticism to grudging approval. Creative application of the dojutsu's perceptual abilities, she acknowledged. Though the chakra expenditure will be substantial, I can handle it, Naruto assured her. the confidence in his voice stemming not from bravado but from genuine understanding of his expanded capabilities. The chamber shuddered as another barrier collapsed. Time had run out for further planning. On my signal, Naruto instructed, chakra building for the complex technique he envisioned. The Whirlpool Sharingan spun faster as he channeled unprecedented amounts of energy through the newly established pathways. Outside, the root operatives converged on the safe house entrance, specialized tools deployed to dismantle the remaining protective seals. Their coordinated precision spoke to extensive training in countering Uzumaki defenses, knowledge that should have been restricted to the highest levels of village security. The final barrier dissolved under their systematic assault. The lead operative signaled forward, expecting resistance but encountering only an empty chamber, documents and equipment abandoned in apparent haste. Target has evacuated, he reported. Via chakra-enhanced communication technique. Tracking team, deploy sensory grid. Priority 1 is the Uzumaki male with active dojutsu. Secondary targets are the Hyuga female and Uzumaki female. Capture preferred, but authorization for incapacitation granted if necessary. The team dispersed with practiced efficiency, deploying specialized sensory techniques to locate their quarry. Within moments, chakra signatures were detected moving rapidly eastward through the underground escape tunnel. Targets located, the sensory specialist confirmed. Moving in predicted pattern toward the ravine exit point. Too predictable, the team leader noted with suspicion. Establish blocking positions at all potential exit points while maintaining pursuit pressure. The route operatives executed the containment strategy flawlessly, converging on the tunnel exit moments before their targets would emerge. Specialized barrier techniques deployed, creating an impenetrable containment field designed specifically to neutralize dojutsu abilities. When three figures burst from the tunnel entrance, the waiting operatives struck with precision, only to have their techniques pass harmlessly through what proved to be elaborate chakra constructs. Decoys. The team leader realized too late. Reset perimeter. Locate actual targets immediately. But the momentary confusion had served its purpose. Nearly a mile south, three figures emerged from an abandoned well that connected to a secondary passage from the safe house, a route so old it had been omitted from later maps of the tunnel system. It worked, Naruto confirmed, maintaining sensory awareness through his dojutsu while conserving physical energy. They've committed resources to the eastern perimeter. Not for long, Karen warned, her OWN sensory abilities tracking the route team's movements. Their commander has already recognized the deception. We have perhaps 3 minutes before they reorient. Hinata scanned their surroundings with her Byakugan. Forest coverage thins approximately 2 kilometers ahead. We'll be exposed if we continue southward. Naruto considered their options, the Whirlpool Sharingan allowing him to visu Ali's potential routes with unprecedented clarity. There, he decided, indicating a barely visible game trail leading southwest. It connects to an underground stream tunnel that emerges near the Valley of End. The water will mask our chakra signatures. Karen raised an eyebrow. How could you possibly know that? Those tunnels aren't on any map. I can see them, Naruto explained, struggling to articulate the strange perception. Not physically, but the way chakra flows through the landscape. Natural energy patterns reveal the underground structures. This capability, to perceive natural energy configurations and interpret them accurately, exceeded known parameters of either Sharingan or traditional Uzumaki sensory abilities. The dojutsu is still evolving, Karen noted with a mixed degree of scientific fascination and concern, adapting to your specific chakra configuration and needs. Before they could discuss further, Hinata's posture stiffened. They've redeployed. 2 teams converging on our position from northeast and northwest. Approximately 90 seconds until contact. They moved without further debate, following Naruto's indicated route at maximum speed. The game descended sharply into a ravine where water could be heard rushing below, though the stream itself remained invisible beneath layers of forest growth. Here, Naruto directed, identifying a narrow fissure in the rock face that ordinary vision would have overlooked entirely. The entrance is protected by natural genjutsu effects from mineral deposits in the stone. The passage proved barely wide enough for single-file movement, forcing them to proceed cautiously despite the urgency of their situation. Behind them, sounds of pursuit grew progressively louder, branches snapping, communications equipment crackling. The distinctive whisper of specialized tracking techniques activating. They're using Inuzuka-derived sensory methods, Hinata reported, Byakugan monitoring their pursuers. Modified for human application. Another example of Danzo's experimentation with bloodline techniques, Karen noted grimly. Further evidence connecting him to interest in your dojutsu. The passage widened suddenly, opening onto a small underground cavern through which a swift stream flowed. Phosphorescent fungi provided minimal illumination, revealing smooth stone walls carved by centuries of water erosion. We follow the current, Naruto instructed, already wading into the knee-deep water. It emerges approximately 3 kilometers downstream, beyond their current search perimeter. The cold water shocked their systems as they submerged themselves sufficiently to proceed through the narrower sections of the tunnel. The current, stronger than it had appeared, pulled them forward with increasing speed as the passage descended. Hold your position, a voice commanded from the cavern entrance behind them. A route operative had located their trail, specialized mask enhancing visual acuity in the dim light. Without hesitation, Hinata spun toward the threat, hands flashing through seals rarely utilized outside Hyuga clan techniques. Byakugan art. Visual disruption field. The cavern filled momentarily with intense, pulsing light specifically calibrated to overload enhanced visual perception. The pursuing operative staggered backward, temporarily blinded despite protective equipment. Impressive application, Karen noted as they continued downstream, picking up speed. I wasn't aware the Hyuga had developed counter-surveillance techniques of that sophistication. They haven't, Hinata replied quietly. I developed it independently. The revelation of Hinata's previously undisplayed technical innovation registered with Naruto even through the urgency of their escape. The traditionally reserved Hyuga heiress contained depths few had recognized, perhaps herself included. The underground stream carried them swiftly through the mountain's interior, periodic phosphor escent growths providing just enough illumination to navigate the occasionally treacherous passages. After what seemed like hours but was likely only 20 minutes, the tunnel began to brighten with natural light filtering from ahead. Exit approaching, Naruto confirmed, maintaining the dojutsu's activation despite growing fatigue. The ability's continuous chakra drain was significant, though manageable with his Uzumaki reserves. The stream emerged through a rock formation partially concealed by a waterfall, one of many that fed the river flowing through the valley of End. As they pulled themselves from the water onto a narrow stone ledge, the massive statues of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha loomed in the distance, silent witnesses to another chapter in the complex history that connected their bloodlines. We've successfully broken their tracking pattern, Karen confirmed after performing a specialized sensory technique. Though they'll establish a wider search perimeter once Hey realize we've left the immediate area. What now? Naruto asked, deactivating the Whirlpool Sharingan to conserve remaining energy. Karen studied him thoughtfully before responding. You too shish. Old return to Konoha. Your absence will already have been noted. I'll continue independently to follow leads on your attacker's movements. And go where? Naruto questioned, unwilling to lose contact with his newly discovered relative so quickly. There's another safe house, Karen explained, withdrawing a small scroll from her equipment pouch. Northwest of the Land of River's border. The coordinates are encoded here. Accessible only through the dojutsu. She handed him the scroll, their fingers briefly touching in the exchange. Something passed between them in that moment, a recognition of shared heritage transcending their limited acquaintance. 3 days, she instructed. Come if you can do so without drawing attention. Bring information from the archives if possible, particularly anything regarding the central temple complex of Uzushiogakure. What if we're followed again? Hinata asked practically. Karen's lips curved in a small smile. The seal I placed on Naruto includes a proximity alert function. If anyone tracks you using specialized techniques, I'll know. As they prepared to separate, Naruto impulsively reached out to grasp Karen's hand once more. Thank you, he said simply. For helping. For being family. Something vulnerable flickered briefly across Karen's usually guarded features. Don't get sentimental, cousin. Uzumaki pragmatism serves better and Uzumaki emotionalism in times like these. Despite her dismissive words, she returned the grip briefly before pulling away. Be careful in Konoha. Not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well, so. Mething our clan learned too late when Uzushiogakure fell. With that warning, she performed a series of hand seals, her form dissolving into scattered light particles similar to her departure technique in the archives. Left alone at the waterfall's edge, Naruto and Hinata exchanged glances that contained volumes of unspoken concerns. We need to return quickly, Hinata noted, wringing water from her clothing as best she could. Create a plausible explanation for our absence. Training accident, Naruto suggested half-heartedly. Got lost in the forest. Hinata shook her head. Too easily disproven. Better to admit partial truth. That you experienced unusual chakra fluctuations related to the dojutsu and I accompanied you to monitor with my Byakugan. The pragmatic deception surprised Naruto, who had always perceived Hinata as almost painfully honest. Another dimension of her character revealing itself under pressure. Will you get in trouble? He asked, genuine concern in his voice. With your father or the clan? Something hardened in Hinata's pale eyes. My father believes I'm participating in specialized training regarding dojutsu interaction under the Hokage's authorization. Technically true, if incomplete. As they began the journey back toward Konoha, moving at measured pace to avoid appearing hurried, Naruto found himself reevaluating much of what he'd taken for granted, about the village. About his heritage, about the people around him. Most particularly, about the quiet Hyuga heiress who had revealed unexpected depths of courage, capability, and conviction throughout this unfolding crisis. Hinata, he began hesitantly, why are you helping me with all this? It's putting you at risk, going against village authorities. She continued forward several steps before responding. Voice quiet but firm, because it's right. Your heritage was hidden from you. Your abilities were sealed without your knowledge or consent. Now that they've awakened, you deserve to understand them fully. The simple, principled answer reflected a moral clarity that transcended village politics or clan obligations. There's more, she added after a moment, a hint of her former shyness returning. I believe in you, Naruto-kun. Who you are, what you stand for. If understanding your heritage and abilities helps you become who you're meant to be, then supporting that journey is important to me. The personal dimension of her motivation hung in the air between them, neither fully acknowledged nor dismissed. Before Naruto could formulate a response, Hinata's posture shifted subtly to alertness. Patrol ahead, she warned, Byakugan activating briefly. Standard pattern, not searching specifically for us. They adjusted their approach to intersect naturally with the patrol route, presenting the appearance of shinobi returning from routine training rather than fugitives evading pursuit. The Chunin patrol leader regarded them with mild curiosity, noting their damp clothing. Training at this hour. Chakra control exercises by the East River, Hinata explained smoothly. Naruto-kun is working on a new technique that requires water element interaction. The explanation, plausible and boring enough to discourage further inquiry, satisfied the patrol leader. After recording their return in the standard logbook, he waved them through toward the village. As the lights of Konoha appeared in the pre-dawn darkness, Naruto felt the weight of secrets and revelations pressing upon him. The Whirlpool Sharingan, his Uzumaki heritage, the masked attacker's agenda. Karen's warnings about village politics, each piece connected to form a picture still incomplete but increasingly troubling. Get some rest, Hinata advised as they prepared to separate near the village center. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. Hinata, Naruto called softly as she turned to leave. When she paused, looking back questioningly, he found himself momentarily at a loss for words. Just, thank you, for everything. A small smile curved her lips, transforming her solemn features. Always, Naruto-kun. As he watched her disappear into the pre-dawn shadows, Naruto touched the invisible seal on his arm, the connection to his newly discovered relative and, through her, to the scattered remnants of his mother's clan. For the first time in his life, he felt the pull of heritage, not just as abstract knowledge, but as living connection to something greater than himself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them not as an orphan with unknown origins, but as an Uzumaki with awakening legacy. The Whirlpool Sharingan was more than just a powerful dojutsu, it was the key to a history, a bloodline, and a purpose that had been sealed away from him. Now awakened, that legacy would not be easily suppressed again. Dawn broke over Konoha as Naruto finally reached his apartment, exhaustion competing with determination as he contemplated his next moves in this increasingly complex situation. One thing was certain: nothing would be the same again. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3 Scattered Remnants. Morning light filtered through Naruto's apartment window, casting long shadows across the floor. He sat cross-legged on his bed, the ancient scroll Tsunade had given him unfurled before him, its weathered edges curling slightly. 3 days had passed since the M.I.D. night encounter with Karen and their narrow escape from root operatives. 3 days of careful training, guarded conversations, and growing anticipation. The scroll contained coordinates, encrypted, in an archaic Uzumaki cipher that would have been indecipherable without his newly awakened dojutsu. When viewed through the Whirlpool Sharingan, the seemingly decorative border patterns revealed Eyes geographical markers indicating a location in the coastal region northeast of the Land of Fire, near the former borders of Uzumaki. A soft knock at his door broke his concentration. Kaylee rolled the scroll and tucked it away before answering. Hinata stood in the hallway, dressed in practical traveling clothes rather than her usual attire. A small pack hung from her shoulders, containing only essential supplies. "The Hokage approved our training expedition," she reported quietly. 3 days of supervised dojutsu integration exercises in the eastern forest region. Their cover story had been carefully constructed, plausible, verifiable, yet vague enough to allow deviation from the reported route if necessary. Tsunade's approval had come with obvious reservations, but the supporting documentation from Sakura regarding the medical benefits of controlled field testing had ultimately proven persuasive. "Any complications?" Naruto asked, gathering his own pre-packed supplies. "My father requested a Hyuga escort," Hinata replied, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "I convinced him that additional observers would compromise the controlled testing environment. Lady Tsunade supported my assessment." Naruto grinned. "Getting good at this political maneuvering, Hinata." A faint smile touched her lips. "The Hyuga heiress occasionally has her uses." The subtle NCE in her self-reference, so different from her former tendency toward self-deprecation, struck Naruto anew. Recent events had revealed aspects of Hinata's character that had previously remained hidden. Beneath layers of hesitation and formal restraint, "Kakashi-sensei will meet us at the eastern gate," she continued. "He's officially supervising the expedition, though he's been briefed to maintain distance during actual training sessions." "And unofficially?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Unofficially, he mentioned something about catching up on his reading while we kids sort out the interesting stuff." Her impression of Kakashi's lackadaisical tone was surprisingly accurate. Naruto laughed. "Some supervision." He shouldered his pack, double-checking that the ancient scroll was securely hidden in an inner pocket. "Ready." Hinata nodded, her expression growing more serious. "Naruto-kun, once we leave the village, we'll be largely on our own if the coordinates lead where I think they might." "And where's that?" "Based on the geographical markers and historical accounts, potentially an Uzumaki outpost from before the fall of Uzumaki. Possibly a location never fully documented in Konoha's records." The implication hung between them: they would be entering territory with unknown dangers, political complications, and historical significance beyond their original mission parameters. "Good thing I've got you watching my back then," Naruto replied with genuine confidence. "Let's go." The eastern gate stood quiet in the early morning hours, most villagers still preparing for the day ahead. Kakashi leaned against the gatehouse wall, orange book in hand, the picture of casual disinterest. Only the subtle alertness in his visible eye betrayed his awareness as they approached. "My 2 favorite dojutsu users," he greeted without looking up from his book. "Ready for our educational field trip." "All set, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto confirmed. The Jonin finally closed his book, tucking it away as he straightened. "A few ground rules before we depart. First, maintain regular communication. If you're testing techniques that might affect chakra control, I need advance notice. Second, standard security protocols apply. No unnecessarily revealing the nature of our mission to anyone we encounter. And third," his eye crinkled in what might have been a smile beneath his mask, "try not to discover any world-changing secrets without consulting me first." The pointed nature of this last instruction suggested Kakashi understood more about their true objectives. than his official briefing might have indicated. "We'll do our best," Naruto promised, matching his teacher's deliberately casual tone. As they signed out at the checkpoint, Azuma peered at their documentation with mild curiosity. 3-day training expedition. Anything interesting? Ocular chakra pathway integration. Hinata responded smoothly, using technical jargon likely to discourage further questions. Comparative analysis of dojutsu manifestation in varied elemental conditions. The guard's eyes glazed slightly at the academic phrasing. Right. Well, good luck with that. Once beyond the village boundaries and well into the forest, Kakashi increased their pace to a steady chakra-enhanced run through the canopy. "So," he began conversationally as they traveled, "where are we really going?" Naruto nearly missed his next branch. "What, please?" Kakashi replied dryly. "I've been a jonin since before you were born. Dojutsu integration exercises, as creative, but this mission requisition has alternative objective written all over it." Naruto and Hinata exchanged glances, silently debating how much to reveal. "It's related to my Uzumaki heritage," Naruto finally admitted. "Coordinates to what might be an old clan outpost or safe house." Kakashi nodded, unsurprised. "And you didn't officially report this because we're not certain who in Konoha's administration might have their own interests regarding Uzumaki clan relics," Hinata answered with diplomatic precision. "Ah." The single syllable conveyed complete understanding. After a moment, Kakashi added, "You realize that by accompanying you, I'm technically participating in an unauthorized extension of our mission parameters." "We could have gone without telling you," Naruto pointed out. "Yes, and that would have been both more dangerous and less interesting." Kakashi's visible eye crinkled again. "Consider me an invested observer. My knowledge of historical security protocols might prove useful if we're dealing with forgotten outposts." The unexpected support from his former teacher lifted a weight from Naruto's shoulders. Despite growing suspicions about certain elements within Konoha's power structure, having Kakashi's experience and loyalty bolstered his confidence in their expedition. They traveled swiftly but cautiously, maintaining awareness of their surroundings. By midday, they had covered significant distance, passing beyond the familiar training territories into less frequently patrolled regions of Fire Country's northeastern frontier. During a brief rest, Naruto unfolded a map where he had marked their destination. According to the coordinates, we're heading toward the coastal region here, he indicated a point approximately 5 kilometers inland. From where the border of Fire Country met the narrow strait separating the mainland from the scattered islands that once constituted Uzumaki territory. Kakashi studied the location thoughtfully. Interesting choice for an outpost. Close enough to maintain communication with the main village, yet within Fire Country's historical boundaries. Likely established during the early Alliance period. The scroll mentioned something about a sentinel position, Naruto added. Though the translation was partial at best. Sentinel positions were specialized outposts established by Uzumaki. You were to monitor regional chakra fluctuations, Hinata explained, drawing on her extensive historical knowledge. They were particularly concerned with unusual energy patterns that might indicate forbidden techniques or boundary disturbances. Quote, both men looked at her with surprise at this specialized information. Hyuga Historical Archives, she explained with a slight blush. Our clan maintained diplomatic relations with Uzumaki prior to its fall. Some records were preserved. Records that aren't in Konoha's main archives, Kakashi noted with interest. The Hyuga clan's tendency toward information hoarding occasionally proves useful. By late afternoon, the terrain began to change, forest giving way to rocky outcroppings as they approached the coastal region. Salt carried on the breeze, and the distant sound of waves breaking against cliffs became audible. We're getting close, Naruto confirmed, consulting both the map and the internal sense of direction that had grown stronger as they approached the coordinates. Something about this area resonated with his awakened abilities, creating an almost magnetic pull. Kakashi signaled for them to halt, his experienced senses detecting something ahead. We're not alone, he murmured, lifting his headband to reveal his own Sharingan. 3 chakra signatures approximately half a kilometer northeast. Not actively concealing themselves, but definitely not local villagers. Naruto activated the Whirlpool Sharingan, his perception immediately expanding to encompass their surroundings in vivid detail. The three Nature's Kakashi had detected became visible as distinct patterns of energy, one particularly vibrant and characterized by spiral-like flows that seemed oddly familiar. One of them has Uzumaki chakra, he realized aloud. Similar to Karen's signature, but different somehow. Hinata's Byakugan activated, extending her vision toward the detected presences. They appear to be examining some kind of structure embedded in the cliffside. One is using specialized tools to interact with what looks like a ceiling array. Treasure hunters, Kakashi suggested grimly, or something more official. Let's find out, Naruto decided, already moving forward with greater caution. But quietly, they approached using natural cover, suppressing their chakra signatures to avoid detection. As they drew closer, the structure came into view, a weathered stone doorway built directly into the face of a coastal cliff, its surface covered with faded spiral patterns and complex sealing formulas that glowed faintly with residual chakra. The three figures Kakashi had detected stood before this entrance. Two wore standard research equipment with no obvious village affiliations, civilian archaeologists or private collectors, perhaps. The third, however, caught Naruto's attention immediately. A young woman with her hair styled in two buns examined the doorway with focused intensity, running specialized tools along the carved seals with practiced precision. Something about her was unmistakably familiar. That's Tenten, Naruto whispered in surprise, recognizing their fellow Konoha shinobi. From Team Guy, what's she doing out here? Kakashi murmured, equally surprised to find another leaf ninja at these remote coordinates. As they watched, Tenten produced a scroll from her equipment pouch, pairing symbols on it with those carved into the doorway. The two researchers with her made notes and adjustments to equipment that appeared designed to measure chakra fluctuations. Should we approach openly? Hinata asked quietly. Kakashi considered briefly before nodding. Better to establish friendly contact than risk misunderstanding. But maintain awareness. Those researchers aren't from Konoha. They emerged from cover, approaching at a measured pace that was neither threatening nor furtive. Tenten noticed them first, her hand instinctively moving toward a weapon before recognition dawned. Naruto, Hinata, Kakashi-sensei. Surprise colored her voice as she straightened. What are you doing out here? I could ask you the same thing, Naruto replied with a friendly grin, deactivating his dojutsu before it became visible to the researchers. Pretty far from the usual training grounds. The two researchers exchanged guarded glances, clearly uncertain about the new arrivals. Tenten quickly made introductions. These are Professor Mori and Dr. Tanaka from Capital City University's Historical Artifacts Division. They're conducting research on pre-war architectural sealing methods. She turned to her companions. These are fellow Konoha shinobi, there's no need for concern. The older researcher, Professor Mori, adjusted his spectacles with a skeptical expression. Your village seems unusually interested in obscure historical sites lately. First you, now these three. Coincidence, Kakashi offered smoothly. We're conducting specialized training exercises in the region and noticed unusual chakra patterns. Standard protocol requires investigation of potential security concerns. The explanation, delivered with practiced casualness, seemed to satisfy the researchers if not entirely convince them. Well, as you can see, we're simply conducting academic research, Professor Mori stated. With all proper authorizations from both the daimyo's historical commission and your own village administration. Of course, Kakashi agreed pleasantly. Though I'm curious how you identified this particular site. It doesn't appear on standard geographical surveys. Dr. Tanaka, the younger researcher, spoke up with obvious academic enthusiasm. That's precisely what makes it so fascinating. We've been cross-referencing fragmentary accounts from pre-war trade documents, with geographical anomalies in coastal chakra patterns. This structure doesn't appear in any official records, yet clearly represents sophisticated architectural sealing techniques consistent with late Warring States period craftsmanship. Quote, while the researchers explained their methodology to Kakashi, Tenten moved closer to Naruto and Hinata, her voice dropping to ensure privacy. Okay, what's really going on? This can't be coincidence. Naruto hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Hinata answered for him, her diplomatic training evident in her careful phrasing. We're investigating historical connections relevant to Naruto-kun's clan heritage. These coordinates came from a scroll provided by the Hokage. Tenten's eyes widened slightly. Uzumaki clan. At Naruto's surprised look, she explained. The spiral patterns are distinctive. I've been studying ancient weapons with similar markings for months. What brought you here specifically? Hinata asked, maintaining a casual tone despite her evident interest. Tenten glanced toward the researchers, ensuring they remained engaged with Kakashi before responding. I've been researching specialized weapons that incorporate sealing techniques, my personal area of expertise. Historical accounts mentioned Uzushiogakure weapons masters who developed unique integration methods. When Professor Mori approached me about joining this expedition as a consultant on weaponized sealing techniques, I couldn't refuse. She withdrew a scroll from her equipment pouch, partially unrolling it to reveal diagrams of various weapons embedded with sealing arrays. These designs reference specialized chakra metal forging techniques supposedly preserved in outposts like this one. The potential applications are significant. The technical enthusiasm in her voice reminded Naruto of why Tenten had earned her reputation as Konoha's premier weapons specialist. Her interest in the site clearly extended beyond academic curiosity to professional development of her unique combat style. Have you managed to open the entrance? Naruto asked, eyeing the sealed doorway with growing interest. Tenten sighed in frustration. Not yet. The security system is remarkably sophisticated. Layered seals with blood recognition components and chakra pattern authentication. Without the proper genetic markers or activation sequence, we're limited to external analysis. Naruto exchanged meaningful glances with Hinata. With his Uzumaki blood and the Whirlpool Sharingan's ability to perceive sealing structures, he likely had precisely what was needed to access the outpost. Perhaps we could assist, Hinata suggested carefully. Our training includes specialized techniques that might complement your research approach. Tenten's eyes narrowed slightly, clearly sensing the subtext. After a moment's consideration, she nodded. I'll speak with the professors. They've been stuck on the authentication sequence for days. They might welcome fresh perspectives. As she rejoined the researchers and Kakashi, Naruto activated the Whirlpool Sharingan briefly, examining the doorway with his enhanced perception. The sealing array revealed itself as an intricate network of interconnected chakra pathways, dormant but intact despite centuries of exposure to the elements. I can see how it works, he murmured to Hinata. It's a 3-layer authentication system. Blood recognition, chakra pattern verification, and some kind of memory imprint. The third component is unlike anything I've encountered before. Can you activate it? Hinata asked quietly. I think so, but we'll need to get the researchers to step back. This was designed to respond specifically to Uzumaki chakra. Anyone else in proximity might trigger defensive measures. After a brief discussion, Tenten managed to convince the researchers to retreat to their equipment station approximately 50 meters away, ostensibly to recalibrate their measuring devices while the Konoha shinobi attempted an alternative approach. They're skeptical but willing to observe from a distance, she reported, rejoining them at the doorway. Now, what's the real plan? Kakashi stepped forward, taking nominal command of the situation. Naruto has certain capabilities relevant to accessing Uzumaki clan architecture. But what we find inside remains part of our official mission parameters. Understood. Tenten's expression reflected both confusion and curiosity, but she nodded her agreement. Whatever you find related to weapons sealing techniques, I'd appreciate being included in the documentation. Fair enough, Naruto agreed, positioning himself before the doorway. You might want to step back too. As the others created distance, Naruto focused on the central spiral of the sealing array. The Whirlpool Sharingan activated fully, its distinctive pattern reflecting the ancient symbols carved into the stone. Following instincts that felt simultaneously foreign and deeply familiar, he bit his thumb to draw blood. Then pressed his palm against the central seal. Blood of the whirlpool, return to source, he found himself saying, the words emerging from some ancestral memory rather than conscious knowledge. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The faded symbols illuminated with brilliant blue-white light, spiral patterns beginning to rotate as chakra flowed through long dormant pathways. The stone surface vibrated beneath his palm, ancient mechanisms awakening in response to Uzumaki blood and chakra. A grinding sound emanated from within the cliff as the sealed doorway began to retract, revealing a dark passage beyond. The air that emerged carried the scent of salt, stone, and something else, old paper and ink, preserved through centuries by specialized preservation seals. It worked, Tenten whispered, awe evident in her voice as she rejoined them. You actually opened it. From the research station, Professor Mori called out excitedly, remarkable activation. The chakra readings are off our measurement scales. How did you trigger the authentication sequence? Specialized technique, Kakashi replied vaguely, moving to examine the open doorway. We should proceed carefully. Security systems this old might have degraded in unpredictable ways. Naruto created a shadow clone to remain at the entrance, explaining to the increasingly curious Reseer shares that they needed to assess structural stability before allowing civilian access. This partial truth satisfied their immediate questions while providing the Konoha team opportunity to investigate privately. The passage beyond the doorway descended at a gentle angle into the cliff, illuminated by seals that activated sequentially as they proceeded deeper. The architecture became increasingly elaborate, walls inscribed with historical accounts, reference materials, and what appeared to be technical diagrams for various sealing applications. This isn't just an outpost, Kakashi observed, mining the surroundings with his Sharingan. It's a knowledge repository, possibly established as a backup archive in case something happened to the main village. Prescient, Hinata noted soberly. Considering Uzushiyogakure's ultimate fate, the passage opened into a circular chamber approximately 30 feet in diameter. Unlike the relatively simple entrance, this room featured elaborately carved pillars, each bearing spiral motifs interwoven with other clan symbols, some recognizable as ancient versions of existing Konoha clan crests, others entirely unfamiliar. At the chamber's center, stood a stone pedestal supporting a crystalline container. Inside, visible through the translucent material, rested a collection of scrolls sealed with the distinctive Uzumaki spiral. The main repository, Tenten breathed. Weapons specialists I immediately drawn to one wall where various implements hung in specialized containment fields, kunai, shuriken, short swords, and other tools, each airing intricate sealing formulas along their surfaces. Naruto approached the central pedestal, drawn by an inexplicable sense of connection. The Whirlpool Sharingan activated automatically as he neared, responding to something within the sealed container. There's a recognition system here too, he noted, examining the pedestal with his enhanced perception. Similar to the entrance but more complex. Can you open it? Kakashi asked, dividing his attention between the potential historical treasure and maintaining situational awareness of their surroundings. Naruto placed his hands on either side of the crystal container, channeling chakra through the specific pathways his dojutsu revealed. It's not just blood recognition. It's looking for something specific in the chakra pattern itself. As he spoke, the container responded, a soft humming emanating from its structure as internal seals illuminated. The crystal surface became temporarily transparent, allowing him to reach through and extract the scrolls within as though the solid material had become permeable. How did you do that? Tenten asked, fascinated by the technical application. The container wasn't designed to open, Hinata observed with her Byakugan active. It's a phase shift seal, allowing matter with compatible chakra signatures to pass through while maintaining protection against all other intrusion attempts. Naruto carefully withdrew 3 scrolls from within the container, each sealed with a different colored wax bearing the Uzumaki spiral. Red, blue, and green seals. Some kind of classification system. Standard Uzushiyogaku protocol, Kakashi explained, surprising them with his knowledge. Red for history and lineage, blue for technical applications, green for alliance and diplomatic records. At their questioning looks, he shrugged slightly. I worked with your mother occasionally, he told Naruto. She maintained similar organizational systems for her personal archives. The casual reference to Kushina, one of the few Naruto had heard from someone who knew her personally, created a momentary tightness in his throat. He nodded acknowledgement, carefully breaking the seal on the red-marked scroll first. The ancient paper unfurled to reveal text in the same spiral-infused script they had encountered in Konoha's archives. However, when viewed through the Whirlpool Sharingan, the characters shifted, rearranging into readable form. It's a security feature, Naruto realized. The text is encoded to be fully legible only to those with the dojutsu. What does it say? Hinata asked, unable to perceive the transformation despite her Byakugan. Chronicle of the Crimson Spiral, Naruto read aloud. Recorded by Ashina Uzumaki, seal master and elder of Uzushiogakure, in the 15th year of village founding. The scroll contained a detailed account of the Uzumaki clan's early history, including specific reference to the dojutsu that had manifested in certain bloodlines. The eye technique first appeared in the 3rd generation after foundation, Naruto continued translating. When blood of the Observer clan mingled with our own, the resulting dojutsu combined the perceptual advantages of their visual prowess with our clan's natural affinity for seal recognition and manipulation. Observer clan, Tenten questioned, looking toward Kakashi for explanation. The Jonin's visible eye narrowed thoughtfully, an ancient reference to what would later be known as the Uchiha, before they adopted their current name. They were called observers in some historic AL texts because of their visual abilities. Naruto continued reading, his voice growing more intent as the historical account progressed. The Whirlpool Sharingan, as it came to be known, manifest rarely, perhaps one individual per generation, always in times when the clan faced significant threats. Its awakening became viewed as both blessing and harbinger, for it signaled both potential salvation and imminent danger. Further passages detailed the specific capabilities of the dojutsu, confirming what Naruto had already begun to discover through experience, enhanced perceptual abilities similar to the standard Sharingan, but with additional capacity to visualize, comprehend, and manipulate sealing techniques at an intuitive level. Most significantly, it described the ability to perceive and access ancestral memories preserved within Uzumaki bloodline chakra. That explains the visions I've been experiencing, Naruto murmured. They're not just random images, they're actual memories passed down through generations. Genetic memory transmission is theoretically possible through specialized chakra pathways, Hinata noted. Though I've never encountered documentation of a Tekken IQ that could access such information consciously. While Naruto continued examining the historical scroll, Tenten had moved to investigate the weapon's display. Her expertise immediately recognized the significance of what she found. These aren't just sealed weapons, she announced, carefully examining a kunai without touching it. They're chakra conductors designed to interface directly with specific bloodline techniques. The sealing arrays are calibrated to amplify and focus abilities unique to certain clans. Kakashi joined her, his Sharingan examining the implements with professional interest. Collaborative development between allied clans, perhaps. The craftsmanship suggests shared techniques across multiple bloodlines. That would be unprecedented, Tenten replied, her specialist knowledge evident. Clans guarded their specific weapon modifications jealously, even among allies. Not always, Naruto interjected, having found relevant information in the scroll. According to this, Uzushiogakure served as a neutral development ground where allied clans could collaborate on shared techniques without compromising individual clan secrets. These weapons represent joint projects between Uzumaki seal masters and various bloodline specialists. The revelation suggested a level of inter-clan cooperation rarely documented in conventional histories, another aspect of Noel. DGE lost with Uzushiogakare's destruction. Hinata, meanwhile, had been examining the pillars surrounding the chamber, her Byakugan revealing hidden characteristics invisible to normal perception. These aren't just decorative, she reported. Each pillar contains a specialized storage seal. I believe they're designed to preserve chakra imprints, something like three-dimensional recordings of techniques or demonstrations. Naruto approached the nearest pillar, guided by Hinata's observation. When he placed his hand against the central spiral marking, the Whirlpool Sharingan activated automatically in response to something within the stone. The effect was immediate and disorienting. The chamber around them seemed to fade, replaced by a vivid projection of the same space as it had existed centuries earlier. Spectral figures populated the room, red-haired Uzumaki clan members alongside representatives from other clans, identifiable by distinctive features and attire. It's some kind of historical record, Naruto breathed, watching as the phantom figures engaged in what appeared to be a demonstration of sealing techniques. A preserved memory of what happened in this chamber. Others could perceive the projection as well, though less distinctly than Naruto with his active dojutsu. They watched in fascination as the historical figures collaborated on complex seal formations, integrating different chakra types into unified techniques. One figure in particular dominated the demonstration, a tall Uzumaki man with long red hair tied back, directing the proceedings with evident authority. His eyes bore the distinctive pattern of the Whirlpool Sharingan, marking him as one of Naruto's predecessors in manifesting the rare bloodline trait. That must be Ashina Uzumaki, Kakashi identified, recognizing the figure from historical accounts. One of the most prominent seal masters in recorded history, and a key architect of the alliance between Uzushiogakure and the early Konoha founders. As they observed, the historical projection demonstrated a specific technique, the creation of chakra chains that could manifest from the user's body to bind or restrain targets. The Uzumaki practitioners infused these chains with specialized sealing properties, enhancing their effectiveness against particularly powerful chakra sources. The adamantine sealing chains, Kakashi identified. Your mother's signature technique, believed lost after her death. The projection continued for several minutes before gradually fading, leaving them once again in the ancient chamber. Naruto removed his hand from the pillar, processing what they had witnessed. There are 8 pillars, Hinata noted, each likely containing different historical records or technique demonstrations. A complete training repository, Kakashi concluded, designed to preserve clan knowledge regardless of what happened to the main village or its inhabitants. The foresight demonstrated by such preparation spoke volumes about the Uzumaki clan's awareness of their precarious position in the shinobi world. They had created this hidden archive knowing their techniques and knowledge might someday be targeted for destruction, a fear ultimately realized in Uzushiyogakure's fall. Naruto turned to the blue sealed scroll next, breaking its seal to reveal technical documentation. When viewed through the Whirlpool Sharingan, the diagrams transformed from abstract patterns into precise instructions for various sealing techniques, including specific applications designed for those with the dojutsu. This is incredible, he murmured, absorbing information at an accelerated rate through his enhanced perception. Instructions for techniques that integrate shadow clone jutsu with sealing arts. Methods to create remote-activated seal networks. Even space-time applications similar to the 4th Hokage's Flying Thunder God technique, but with different implementation. The wealth of technical DGE preserved in this single scroll represented generations of Uzumaki innovation, most of it believed lost to the shinobi world after the village's destruction. For Naruto, it was more than historical treasure, it was his birthright. Techniques developed by his ancestors and specifically compatible with his unique chakra nature. Tenten had continued examining the weaponry, making careful notes without disturbing the preservation seals. These designs could revolutionize modern weapons development, she noted with professional excitement. The chakra routing principles alone represent significant advancements over current methodologies. We should document everything systematically before determining what can safely be transported, Kakashi suggested, ever the practical mission leader. Quote, some of these artifacts might be unstable after centuries of dormancy. As they discussed documentation protocols, Naruto's attention was drawn to one particular diagram in the technical scroll, instructions for a technique that combined shadow clones with a specialized sealing array to create autonomous sealing units capable of establishing barrier networks across large areas. Following an instinct he couldn't entirely explain, he formed the hand signs illustrated in the diagram, channeling chakra through the specific pathways highlighted in the instructions. Shadow Clone Seal Network, he declared, completing the sequence. 5 shadow clones materialized around him, each bearing glowing sealing formulas across their palms. The clones immediately moved to strategic positions around the chamber, pressing their marked hands against walls, floor, and ceiling to establish a connected barrier system. Incredible, Hinata breathed, her Byakugan tracking the chakra flow through the newly established network. The clones are functioning as mobile sealing anchors, creating a unified barrier with individual nodes that can operate semi-independently. The technique represented a perfect integration of Naruto's established shadow clone proficiency with Uzumaki sealing arts, as though designed specifically for his unique skill set. The barrier itself was remarkably sophisticated, kappa. BLE of adapting to changing threats through the autonomous decision-making capabilities of the shadow clones. Efficient application, Kakashi noted with approval, his Sharingan examining the technique's structure. Combines the versatility of multiple operators with the unified purpose of a single consciousness. Your mother would be impressed. Before they could discuss further applications, Hinata's posture suddenly stiffened, her Byakugan activating at full capacity as she scanned beyond the chamber. "Someone's approaching the entrance," she reported, voice dropping to a professional whisper. 6 individuals with concealed chakra signatures. Highly coordinated movement patterns suggesting specialized training. Not the researchers. They're still at their observation station but appear to be under some kind of genjutsu. Kakashi immediately shifted to combat readiness. Identification. Hinata focused more intently, her Byakugan penetrating the layers of concealment. No visible headbands or uniforms. But their chakra modification patterns are consistent with Kurigakure Hunter Nin protocols. They're carrying specialized equipment, sealing suppression tools and document destruction implements. They're here to eliminate evidence, Tenten concluded grimly, hands already moving to her weapons scrolls. Typical Kiri approach, maintain deniability about historical operations by destroying the proof. The timing of the Kurigakure operatives' appearance, just as they had discovered this repository of Uzushiogakure knowledge, could not be coincidental. Someone had been monitoring their progress. Perhaps from the moment they left Konoha. "We need to secure these scrolls," Naruto stated, carefully resealing the documents they had examined. Their irreplaceable history, Cal artifacts, and apparently still politically sensitive enough that Kiri would send a specialized team to destroy them. "Agreed," Kakashi replied, already formulating a tactical response. "Hinata, continue monitoring their approach. Tenten, prepare defensive positions focusing on the entrance corridor. Naruto, can your seal barrier provide any additional protection?" "Better than that," Naruto responded, hands already forming seals. "I can adapt it into an offensive countermeasure." Drawing on the techniques detailed in the scroll, Naruto modified the existing clone seal network, transfer ing it from purely defensive to an integrated trap system. The shadow clones repositioned, their palm seals evolving into more complex configurations designed to trigger in response to unauthorized chakra signatures. Meanwhile, Tenten had rapidly deployed scrolls containing her personal weapons arsenal, strategically positioning launchers to cover the entrance corridor with overlapping fields of fire. Her efficiency in establishing these defenses highlighted why she had earned recognition as one of Konoha's premier weapons specialists despite her young age. "They've reached the entrance," Hinata reported, tracking the intruders' movements, disabling Naruto's clone and placing their own sealing suppression devices on the doorway. "Let them enter," Kakashi instructed. "The confined CE of the corridor works to our advantage." Tension built as they waited, each prepared according to their specialties. Naruto's modified seal network hummed with potential energy, shadow clones maintaining their positions while communicating through their shared consciousness to coordinate response timing. The first Hunter Nin appeared at the chamber entrance, specialized mask concealing their features as they performed a swift reconnaissance of the space. 5 more followed in practiced formation, spreading out to secure the chamber with mechanical efficiency. "Konoha Shinobi," the lead operative stated flatly, voice distorted through the mask. "Your presence at this location is unauthorized. This site falls under Kurigakure historical jurisdiction." "Interesting claim," Kakashi replied conversationally, though his stance betrayed readiness for immediate action. "Considering we're well within Fire Country borders, historical boundaries supersede modern territorial claims in matters of cultural heritage," the operative countered. "These artifacts will be secured by Kurigakure for proper historical preservation." The transparent lie, given their observed equipment for NT destruction, confirmed their true purpose. "I don't think so," Naruto responded, channeling chakra to activate his trap network. "These belong to the Uzumaki clan." "My clan." The declaration visibly startled the Kiri operatives, their attention focusing more intently on Naruto. "Uzumaki bloodline?" the leader questioned, tone shifting from administrative to intensely interested. "Confirm identity." The sudden shift in priorities was telling. Their mission parameters clearly included specific protocols regarding potential Uzumaki descendants. "Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha," he stated firmly, allowing the Whirlpool Sharingan to activate fully. "Son of Kushina Uzumaki, heir to the clan's legacy." The effect of the dojutsu revelation was immediate. The Hunter Nin team tensed collectively, NDS moving to weapons as their leader spoke urgently into a communication device concealed within their mask. Priority Alpha target confirmed. Crimson Spiral active. Requesting immediate extraction protocol. The coded message confirmed what they had suspected. The Kurigakure operatives hadn't stumbled upon them accidentally. They had been specifically monitoring for Uzumaki bloodline activation, with special interest in the dojutsu. Now, Naruto commanded, triggering his seal network. The shadow clones activated their modified seals simultaneously, creating an interlocking barrier that separated the hunter nin into pairs. Preventing coordinated action, Tenten immediately capitalized on the division, unleashing precisely targeted weapon barrages that forced the operatives into defensive postures. Kakashi moved with the lightning speed that had earned him his reputation, appearing behind one pair of hunter nin with chakra already crackling around his hand. "I suggest reconsidering your approach," he advised calmly. The threat implicit in his stance. For a moment, it seemed the Kiri operatives might stand down, recognizing the tactical disadvantage. Then the leader made a sharp hand gesture, and all 6 simultaneously activated specialized equipment attached to their forearms. Sealing suppression field, Hinata warned, her Byakugan identifying the technique. Designed to neutralize active sealing formulas. The devices emitted pulses of disruptive chakra specifically calibrated to destabilize the fundamental patterns underlying sealing techniques. Naruto's clone net. Work wavered as the pulses struck their barrier seals, the carefully structured chakra pathways beginning to degrade. Rather than fight the disruption directly, Naruto adapted instantaneously, mental. Lee commanding his clones to transform the dissolving barrier energy into explosive release tags. The shadow clones slammed modified palm seals against the nearest surfaces, converting the compromised barrier chakra into directed explosive force. The resulting detonations weren't particularly powerful, but their precise positioning created chaos among the hunter nin formations, obscuring visibility. Why in disrupting their coordinated tactics? Tenten capitalized on the confusion, fingers dancing through a complex sequence that activated her most advanced weapons scrolls. Rising Dragon Control. Unlike her standard twin Rising Dragon's technique, this advanced variation maintained continuous control over the deployed weapons, allowing her to direct hundreds of projectiles with telepathic precision through the chakra threads connected to her fingers. The hunter nin found themselves defending against an impossible barrage, weapons that changed direction mid-flight, targeted vulnerable points with uncanny accuracy, and even curved around defensive techniques to strike from blind angles. Meanwhile, Hinata had engaged the nearest pair of operatives, her gentle fist style adapted to counter their specialized equipment. Rather than striking directly at chakra points, she targeted the specific pathways connecting to their suppression devices, her Byakugan allowing pinpoint accuracy in disabling the technological threats. "Their communication system is coordinating with external forces," she reported, hands moving in continuous flowing motions that belied the devastating precision of her strikes. Reinforcements approximately 15 minutes out. Kakashi acknowledged this information while engaging the team leader, his Sharingan predicting and countering the specialized hunter nin techniques with practiced efficiency. "We need to secure the artifacts and establish a withdrawal route." Naruto had already moved to protect the central repository, creating additional shadow CL1s to gather the most critical scrolls and weapons. As he worked, one of the hunter nin broke through the defensive perimeter, hands flashing through seals for a water-style technique specifically targeted at the ancient documents. "Water-style. Corrosive mist," the operative declared, exhaling a cloud of chakra-infused vapor designed to destroy paper and ink on contact. Acting on instinct and newly acquired knowledge, Naruto's hands formed unfamiliar seals, channeling chakra through pathways illuminated by the Whirlpool Sharingan. Sealing art. Elemental conversion barrier. A translucent barrier materialized before him, its surface covered with intricate sealing formulas that glowed brilliantly as the corrosive mist contacted it. Rather than simply blocking the technique, the barrier absorbed and transformed it, converting the harmful energy into harmless vapor that dissipated harmlessly. The hunter nin's visible shock at this unexpected counter created an opening that Naruto immediately exploited. His hands shifted to another sequence, drawing on techniques revealed in the technical scroll. Adamantine sealing chains. Golden chains erupted from his body, manifesting pure chakra in a manner reminiscent of the historical projection they had witnessed earlier. The chains shot toward the surprised operative with unerring precision, wrapping around their limbs and or so before constricting to immobilize completely. The technique, his mother's signature ability, felt simultaneously foreign and deeply familiar, as though his body remembered movements his conscious mind had never learned. "He can use the chains," one hunter nin exclaimed, voice betraying genuine alarm. Priority containment protocol authorized. The remaining operatives immediately shifted tactics, focusing their efforts entirely on Naruto despite the ongoing threats from his companions. This singular focus revealed their true mission parameters, the Uzumaki bloodline abilities, particularly the dojutsu and sealing chains, were their primary target. "Protect Naruto," Kakashi ordered, recognizing the strategic shift. Thereafter the bloodline abilities. Tenten responded by redirecting her entire weapons barrage to create a defensive perimeter around Naruto, while Hinata moved to his side, Byakugan tracking multiple threats simultaneously. "They're preparing a coordinated sealing technique," she warned, observing the hunter nin forming a specific formation, designed to suppress bloodline abilities temporarily for transport. The revelation confirmed their apparent mission, not to kill Naruto, but to capture him for his Uzumaki abilities. Whether for research, weaponization, or political leverage, Kurigakure clearly maintained active interest in the bloodline traits the Y had sought to eliminate generations earlier. Recognizing the escalating danger, Kakashi made a tactical decision. Secure the critical artifacts and prepare for immediate withdrawal. "We're outnumbered, red and in disadvantageous territory if reinforcements arrive." As the team began implementing evacuation protocols, Naruto continued defending the repository, his newly manifested sealing chains maintaining control of one hunter nin while shadow clones engaged others. The Whirlpool Sharingan allowed him to perceive attack patterns before they fully formed, counteracting the specialized techniques with unprecedented efficiency. One particular hunter nin broke through the defensive screen, hands already completing a complex sealing technique aimed directly at Naruto. Blood Suppression Seal, the technique, specifically designed to temporarily neutralize bloodline abilities, struck toward Naruto with alarming speed. Before it could connect, however, Hinata interposed herself between them, palms glowing with concentrated chakra. Protection of the 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Her hands moved with blinding speed, creating a protective field of continuous motion that intercepted a ND dispersed the incoming technique before it could reach its target. The advanced defensive variation of her clan's signature technique demonstrated mastery beyond her years, particularly in its application against sealing attacks rather than physical threats. "We need to collapse the entrance," Kakashi decided, recognizing that maintaining their position would become untenable once reinforcements arrived. "Create a controlled destruction sequence that will seal the repository without damaging the artifacts." "I can do it," Naruto realized, the knowledge emerging from information absorbed from the technical scroll combined with intuitive understanding through his dojutsu. "A delayed activation barrier seal that will reconstitute the original protection after we exit." While his companions provided covering fire, Naruto created additional shadow clones to prepare the specialized sealing array. Each clone positioned itself at strategic points throughout the chamber, carefully inscribing complex formulas designed to interact with the outpost's original protection systems. "Almost ready," he confirmed, the Whirlpool Sharingan allowing him to verify the precise alignment of each component in the distributed seal network. "We'll have approximately 30 seconds after activation before the passage seals completely." Tenten had efficiently secured the most critical weapons and technical documentation in specialized storage scrolls, while Kakashi maintained pressure on the hunter nin leadership, preventing them from coordinating an effective containment strategy. "Ready for withdrawal on your mark," Kakashi confirmed, disengaging from his opponent with a final lightning-style technique that temporarily disrupted their nervous system. Naruto completed the final sequence, his shadow clones synchronizing their chakra output to activate the complex array. Sealing art. Sanctuary restoration. Everybody move now. The chamber walls illuminated with brilliant blue-white Ida's ancient protection systems reactivated, recognizing and responding to Uzumaki chakra after centuries of dormancy. The hunter nin immediately recognized the danger, abandoning their pursuit in favor of emergency extraction. As the Konoha team raced through the corridor toward the entrance, the stone structure behind them began reconfiguring itself, not collapsing as conventional demolition might cause, but methodically sealing compartments and activating barrier protections that would render the repository inaccessible to anyone lacking specific Uzumaki bloodline traits. They emerged from the entrance moments before the stone doorway began grinding closed, ancient mechanisms functioning with surprising efficiency despite their age. The researchers, now recovered from the genjutsu that had incapacitated them, stared in confusion at the sealing doorway and the evidence of combat. What happened? Professor Mori demanded, adjusting his disheveled clothing. We were documenting energy readings when suddenly, unauthorized intervention, Kakashi interrupted smoothly. Possibly independent artifact hunters. Unfortunately, the site's security systems interpreted the conflict as a threat and initiated automatic lockdown protocols. The explanation, while technically accurate, omitted critical details about the hunter nin's identity and objectives. The researchers' clear disappointment at losing access to their discovery was tempered by excitement over the limited documentation they had already collected before the confrontation. As the professors gathered their equipment, lamenting the premature conclusion of their expedition, Tenten approached Naruto with undisguised curiosity. Those techniques, she began quietly. The sealing chains, the barrier methods, they're not in any Konoha archives I've ever accessed. Uzumaki clan techniques, he confirmed, equally hushed. Apparently part of my heritage. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. And those Kiri operatives were specifically targeting you because of it. This goes beyond simple historical research or artifact recovery. Yeah, Naruto agreed grimly. They knew about the dojutsu specifically. Called it Crimson Spiral in their communications. Tenten digested this information, professional interest warring with evident concern for her fellow Konoha shinobi. After a moment, she reached into her IP meant pouch and withdrew a small scroll marked with her personal seal. Here, she offered. Preliminary notes on the weapons sealing techniques I observed. My own research has uncovered references to similar designs in other locations. Might help you piece together more of the historical context. The unexpected assistance touched Naruto. While not close friends, he and Tenten had always maintained respectful professional relations as fellow Konoha shinobi. This voluntary sharing of personal research represented a significant gesture of support. Thanks, he said sincerely, accepting the scroll. This means a lot, she nodded, glancing toward the now sealed doorway. Whatever's happening with your clan heritage, it's bigger than academic interest. Those weren't standard archaeology, Cal protection units. They were specialized extraction teams with specific bloodline containment protocols. Her expression grew more serious. Be careful, Naruto. Historical grudges in the shinobi world rarely stay buried forever. As they prepared to depart, Kakashi conducted a final survey of the area, ensuring no evidence remained that might compromise their identities or mission objectives. Hikiri operatives had withdrawn completely, likely regrouping with their approaching reinforcements to reassess their failed extraction attempt. We should move quickly, he advised, rejoining the group. While our official mission parameters provide reasonable cover for our presence in this region, lingering near the site will invite unnecessary complications. They established a reasonable departure narrative with the researchers, who would return to Capital City with their partial findings, significant enough to justify the expedition academically while revealing nothing about the repository's true contents or the confrontation with Kurigakure forces. As they traveled away from the coastal region, maintaining a civilian-appropriate pace until safely beyond observation range, Naruto found his thoughts turning to the historical revelations they had uncovered. The Whirlpool Sharingan's origins, the collaborative history between the Uzumaki and other founding clans, the sophisticated techniques preserved in the outpost, each piece added depth to his understanding of his heritage. More troubling, however, was Kurigakure's evident ongoing interest in Uzumaki bloodline traits. Their operative's recognition of the Crimson Spiral and immediate prioritization of his capture suggested institutional knowledge far beyond what should have survived from a village destroyed generations ago. They were too well prepared, he noted to Kakashi as they paused at a safe distance to reassess their route. Specialized equipment designed specifically to counter Uzumaki techniques, immediate recognition of the dojutsu. Extraction protocols rather than elimination, they knew exactly what they might encounter. Indeed, the Jonin agreed grimly, which suggests either remarkable intelligence gathering or He hesitated, apparently reluctant to voice the alternative. Or prior experience with similar targets, Hinata completed quietly, the implication hanging heavily in the air. If Kurigakure maintained specialized units prepared to capture Uzumaki bloodline users, the possibility existed that other survivors might have been previously targeted, perhaps successfully. The TTERED remnants of the clan might face ongoing threats unknown to Konoha's protection systems. We need to report this to Lady Tsunade, Kakashi decided. Though carefully, the political implications of Kurigakure operating specialized bloodline hunting units in Fire Country territory are significant and potentially dangerous for any other Uzumaki descendants, Naruto added, thinking of Kar. In her warnings about scattered clan members living in secrecy. As afternoon faded toward evening, they established camp in a defensible location, maintaining regular watch rotations despite being well beyond the immediate pursuit range. The scrolls and artifacts secured from the outpost remained carefully sealed in specialized containment scrolls, their contents too valuable to risk casual examination in the field. During his watch period, Naruto found himself reflecting on the ancestral memories he had glimpsed, both through the repository's historical recordings and through the Increa's clear visions granted by the Whirlpool Sharingan. The technique he had manifested, adamantine sealing chains, represented more than just a combat ability, it was a direct connection to his mother and the clan traditions she had carried. As moonlight filtered through the forest canopy, he activated the dojutsu briefly, its enhanced perception revealing the natural chakra flows of the surrounding environment. The world through these eyes contained layers of information invisible to normal sight, patterns, connections, and potential previously hidden from his understanding. Trouble sleeping. Hinata's soft voice broke his reverie as she emerged from her tent for her watch rotation. Just thinking, he replied, deactivating the dojutsu as she sat beside him on the fallen log serving as their watch position. About what you learned today. He nodded. It's strange, discovering all this history that's apparently been part of me all along. Techniques that feel familiar even though I've never learned them. Memories that aren't mine but somehow are. Hinata considered this thoughtfully. The Hyuga have legends about bloodline memory, the idea that certain techniques or knowledge might be carried in our chakra pathways rather than learned conventionally. Most dismiss it as superstition, but it would explain how I could use those sealing chains without training, Naruto completed. Or how I recognized the activation phrases for the repository seals. They sat in companionable silence for several minutes, the forest sounds creating a peaceful backdrop to their conversation. When I was little, Hinata said eventually, voice soft with reminiscence, I once asked my mother why our eyes were different from other people's. She told me that our Byakugan wasn't a technique or a weapon, it was our ancestors' way of still seeing the world through our eyes, generations after they were gone. The poetic explanation resonated with Naruto's recent experiences. Quote, your mother sounds like she was very wise. She was, Hinata agreed, a hint of old grief coloring her voice. After a moment, she added, I think your mother must have been extraordinary too. To master techniques like those sealing chains. To be chosen as a Jinchuriki, to protect you even before you were born by sealing away abilities she feared might put you in danger. The assessment of cushion, based solely on evidence rather than personal knowledge, struck Naruto with unexpected emotional force. His mother had never been merely an abstract concept to him, but hearing her described through the lens of her actions and choices somehow made her presence feel more tangible. Yeah, he agreed quietly. I wish I could have known her. In some ways, perhaps you can now, Hinata suggested. Through the ancestral memories, through the techniques that carry her influence. The perspective offered a comforting alternative to the permanent separation he had always assumed existed between himself and his parents. If something of them lived on in his blood, in his chakra, in the techniques he could now access, perhaps the distance was not as absolute as he had believed. As his watch ended and he prepared to rest, Naruto found his dreams once again filled with vivid imagery, not fragmented visions as before, but coherent sequences that felt like direct communication across generations. He stood on a high cliff overlooking a village built around massive whirlpools, its architecture blending harmoniously with the natural features of the landscape. Beside him stood a woman with vibrant red hair. her face bearing subtle resemblances to his own despite her distinctly Uzumaki coloring. "You found the outpost," she observed, pride evident in her voice. "The first step in reclaiming your heritage. Are you, my mother?" he asked, though something told him this figure represented something both more ancient and more immediate than Kushina herself. She smiled, neither confirming nor denying. "I am memory given form. Echo of blood that flows through your veins. The dojutsu allows such communication when needed. The Kiri hunter Nin knew about it," Naruto stated. "They Kae-d it, Crimson Spiral, and had specific protocols for capturing anyone manifesting it." The woman's expression darkened. "Kurigakure has never abandoned its fear of our clan's abilities. When they participated in Uzushiogakure's destruction, they took captives, bloodline users they believed could be studied, perhaps weaponized. The knowledge they gained has been preserved in certain specialized divisions. Are there others?" he asked. "Other Uzumaki with the dojutsu they might have captured?" "Few," she answered. "The bloodline is rare, requiring specific combinations that seldom occur naturally. But scattered remnants of our clan survive throughout the nations, some knowing what they are, others ignorant of their heritage." The dreamscape shifted, showing brief images of individuals with varying degrees of Uzumaki characteristics, some with vibrant red hair, others with more subtle traits, all connected by thin threads of chakra visible only through the Whirlpool Sharingan's perception. "Blood calls to blood," the woman continued. "Your awakening creates ripples that others with the heritage may sense. Some will seek you out, drawn by ancestral connection. Others may flee, fearing the attention you will inevitably attract. Like the Kiri hunter Nin," Naruto reasoned. "Or whoever sent that masked attacker to trigger the awakening in the first place." She nodded solemnly. Quote, "Many factions have interests in our clan's abilities. Some seek to preserve, others to exploit, still others to eradicate. You must learn to distinguish ally from enemy, particularly those who may present themselves as the former while harboring intentions of the latter." The warning carried ominous implications, particularly given recent events. Even within Konoha, her expression grew more guarded, especially within power structures that have benefited from historical revision. Ask yourself why knowledge of your heritage was suppressed for so long. Why techniques that were your birthright remained sealed away. Before he could press for clarification, the dreamscape began to dissolve, the woman's form fading as dawn approached in the waking world. The outpost scrolls contain crucial knowledge. Her voice continued as she disappeared. But the true power of the Whirlpool Sharingan lies in its ability to reconnect scattered remnants, both of knowledge and of blood. Seek out others who share the heritage. Together, the fragments become whole again. Naruto awoke with the first light of dawn, the dream's clarity and specific guidance suggesting something beyond ordinary subconscious processing. Whether genuine ancestral communication or simply his awakening abilities organizing information in unexpected ways, the message aligned with what they had discovered at the outpost. The scattered remnants of Uzushiogakure's legacy, its knowledge, its techniques, and its descendants, represented both opportunity and responsibility. Whatever forces had conspired to suppress this heritage, whatever modern factions sought to exploit or eliminate it, the path forward required reconnection of these dispersed elements. As they broke camp and prepared to return to Konoha, Naruto felt a newfound sense of purpose emerging from these revelations. Beyond simply mastering his awakened abilities or uncovering historical truths, he now recognized a broader mission taking shape: to find and protect the scattered remnants of his clan, both the knowledge preserved in hidden repositories and the descendants living in ignorance or secrecy across the shinobi world. The journey had begun with personal discovery, but its implications extended far beyond individual heritage. Whatever forces had destroyed Uzushiogakur generations ago, whatever modern interests sought to control or eliminate its legacy, the awakening of the Whirlpool Sharingan represented a turning point in this long-suppressed history. The scattered remnants would begin to reconnect, whether their adversaries wished it or not. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.